Chapter 1463. Only Lin Yuan, the Moon Empress disciple, would be able to obtain a rare item like the main dragon species Fey Essence Blood. When Ning Yanting sent a message to Lin Yuan for help, his face was flushed red. 3 days after Ning Yanting sent the message, there was still no response from Lin Yuan. This made Ning Yanting feel somewhat bitter in his heart. Just as Ning Yanting was about to accept reality, Lin Yuan called. Ning Yanting was momentarily at a loss for words. Moreover, he had solved his problem as soon as he opened his mouth. He didn't know what to say. Saying thank you makes it seem weak. If it was anything else, Ning Yanting would not be able to afford the main dragon species Fey's Essence Blood. Lin Yuan, who had keenly sensed Ning Yanting's state, changed the topic. If Elder Ning has any other needs, please don't hesitate to ask this Junior. Junior has done Senior a favor, and it just so happens that Junior has a matter that I would like to ask Senior for a favor. When she heard Lin Yuan's words and how he addressed her as Senior, she felt a chill run down her spine. Ning Yanting felt as if he had suddenly seen the young man who had been scribbling away during the exam. Even though that youth had become the Moon Empress disciple, he was still as humble as before. Your Highness, if there's anything you need this old man's help with, just let me know. When he had just entered the Spirit Lock spatial zone, Chaimi had been urging him. He wanted to spend the money in the Warm Sun Fund as soon as possible to carry out the Warm Sun Plan. Lin Yuan and Sun Ningxiang had previously discussed how to implement the Warm Sun Plan. Other than improving its strength every day, Chaimi was thinking of holding fan meetings. The rest of the time was spent on live streaming and donating to the Nuanyang Foundation. Lin Yuan didn't want to disappoint Chaimi. Lin Yuan had come from a small place like Redbud City's Xia region. Lin Yuan understood the situation in the Xia region and Redbud City the best. Therefore, he planned to use Redbud City's Xia region as the starting point for Project Warm Sun, and spread it to the entire Redbud City. Finally, it spread throughout the entire Radiance. In order to ensure that there were no loopholes in the Nuanyang plan, they needed someone like Elder Ning, who had an official background, to oversee it. After explaining his intentions to Elder Ning, Lin Yuan hung up the phone. He sent a drop of essence blood that he had extracted from the main dragon phase liver that the Moon Empress had given him, and sent it to Elder Ning. Ning Yanting was left alone beside the spiral-toothed shark. His blood was boiling. This young man, who had just left the Xia region for less than a year, was already thinking of returning to his hometown? What kind of pure and innocent heart was this? If this young man treated his hometown like this, what would he do to the entire Huiyao sect? Ning Yanting had always felt that Lin Yuan's creation master talent was the current generation's prodigy. He had created the history of the creation master exam. But now Ning Yanting felt that compared to Lin Yuan's creation master talent, Lin Yuan's character was more dazzling. This kind of character could no longer be described as noble. For in this character is a belief in the welfare of others. This kind of character must be glorious. After mailing the Master Dragon Essence Blood, he logged into Star Web again, and went to Zhou Jiesen's store. When Lin Yuan arrived at the store, he noticed that Zhou Jiesen was having a discount promotion. An unusually large number of customers were rushing to purchase and stock up on spirit materials. More than half of the spirit siphon goldfish had been sold. At this time, in addition to Zhou Jiesen, there were also the violent-tempered woman and 5 employees in the shop. The 7 of them were extremely busy. Lin Yuan went forward and greeted Zhou Jiesen, who was introducing the spiritual ingredients to the customers. Big Sister Xian, I didn't see the news on Star Web previously. When I saw the news, I immediately rushed to the store. When Zhou Jiesen heard the youth's unique and familiar voice, she was stunned. She then turned around with pleasant surprise. After confirming that it was Lin Yuan, Zhou Jiesen first apologized to the customer. She then arranged for the customer to be with an employee before walking to Lin Yuan's side and smiling. Lin Yuan, you have grown a lot taller after not seeing you for a few months. Lin Yuan's height had indeed increased from 177 centimeters, and his body was much more robust. When Lin Yuan saw the unconcealable loneliness in Zhou Jiesen's smile, he went straight to the point. Big Sister Xian, your Class 5 store is doing fine. Why are you closing all of a sudden? Zhou Jiesen let out a sigh in response. You are the store's major shareholder, so I originally wanted to ask for your opinion. But for the past 2 days, the 3 Class 2 creation masters that were originally hired by the store are no longer serving the store. An old and rising force has been pressuring me to turn my shop into a chain store under that old and rising force and let that old and rising force manage it. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan immediately knew the whole story. It seemed that Zhou Jiesin had been targeted by an old rising force. Under such circumstances, Zhou Jiesin wouldn't be able to deal with this old rising force if it used some illegal means. This was also the fundamental reason why most of the 5-star shops on the Star Web were backed by forces. However, a Class 2 creation master was considered a top-notch figure in a rising faction. Zhou Jiesin had treated the 3 Class 2 creation masters extremely well, and there was no reason for the 3 Class 2 creation masters to be coerced by this veteran and rising faction to not work for Zhou Jiesin anymore. With this doubt, Lin Yuan asked Zhou Jiesin, "Big Sister Xian, were those 3 Class 2 creation masters also forced away by this veteran rising faction?" Zhou Jiesin quickly shook her head and said, "This veteran rising faction has been eyeing our store for a long time. It didn't make such an unreasonable request because it cared about the 3 Class 2 creation masters' reputation. However, I didn't expect that one of the top 3 factions, the Whale Ocean Trade, would be gathering a large number of creation masters and wouldn't limit their star ranks. The creation masters who participate in the experiment will be nurtured by the Whale Ocean Trade. It is because of this information that the 3 Class 2 creation masters in the store left." Lin Yuan originally wanted to help Zhou Jiesin with a small favor, but he didn't expect to hear such news. The Whale Ocean Trade again. It was related to creation masters again. Through Ji Feng, Lin Yuan understood that the Whale Ocean Trade needed creation masters, not the creation masters' talents. Instead, it was the creation masters' lives and bodies. If the Whale Ocean Trade really released such news, who knew how many creation masters would be attracted to the Whale Ocean Trade? If these creation masters were secretly harmed by the Whale Ocean Trade, it would undoubtedly be the same as cutting off the Radiance creation masters' potential. However, Lin Yuan couldn't understand one thing. Even if the Whale Ocean Trade really had the guts to use the creation masters' lives and bodies to do some dirty things, even if it succeeded, the High Lords would find out and pursue the matter. How could the Whale Ocean Trade escape the calamity of extinction? Lin Yuan was originally planning to find time to bring Bai Yinya to explore the Whale Ocean Trade's old mansion. However, it was one thing if he could explore the old mansion at night without being discovered by the Whale Ocean Trade's experts. It was another thing if he could find out something fishy about the Whale Ocean Trade. Chapter 1464. Even if he had the ability to not be detected by the Whale Ocean Trade's experts, it would be very difficult for him to discover the Whale Ocean Trade's conspiracy just by spying at night. However, there was a ready-made opportunity. He would then be able to openly participate in the Whale Ocean Trade's recruitment as a Class 2 creation master. At that time, the Whale Ocean Trading Company would reveal its hidden scheme to him. At that time, he would undoubtedly know clearly what the Whale Ocean Trade was planning. With that in mind, Lin Yuan said to Zhou Jiesin, "Sister Xian, if you want to continue operating this 5-star shop, I have a way. I can help you contact a peak power, do a mortal garden, and let you work with them directly. This way, even if that old rising force had 10 guts, they wouldn't dare to do anything to your shop." Lin Yuan paused for a moment before continuing. "Sister Xian, I'm very interested in the experiment mentioned by the Whale Ocean Trade. I wonder what specific information Sister Xian has obtained." He had learned about the Whale Ocean Trade from Zhou Jiesin. This was something that Wen Yu had not told him before. He had told Wen Yu to pay attention to news of the Whale Ocean Trade. Wen Yu agreed. Therefore, if Wen Yu knew about this, it was impossible for her not to tell him. The only reason why Wen Yu did not tell him was that Wen Yu did not know about this matter. It was no wonder that Sky City did not have an intelligence department at the moment. All the information she knew about the Whale Ocean Trade came from the Radiant Moon Palace and the Hidden Moon Pavilion. The news of the Hidden Moon Pavilion was not updated every day. Instead, the information would only be gathered every once in a while. Through this matter, Lin Yuan felt that his Sky City should start to establish its own information channel. It wasn't like such a situation where the top factions recruited creation masters for experiments had never happened before. Therefore, this kind of thing would not attract too much attention from the Hidden Moon Pavilion. However, after learning about the Whale Ocean Trade's myriad flag's true face through Ji Feng, Lin Yuan was certain. The Whale Ocean Trade was recruiting a large number of creation masters, and wasn't even limiting the creation master's star class. He had to make a big move. When Zhou Jiesin heard Lin Yuan's words, she was delighted and shocked at the same time. When Zhou Jiesin had first seen Lin Yuan, she had only treated him as a cheerful youth. He used federal dollars to buy things, which seemed to be very frugal. Lin Yuan even wanted to buy inferior energy ores, which made Zhou Jia think that Lin Yuan's financial situation was not good. However, it did not take long for him to start spending radiance dollars in his store. He had even set up his own Star Web store. In order to support Lin Yuan, Zhou Jiesin had even specially visited his Star Web store. However, Zhou Jiesin didn't expect that Lin Yuan's store was actually selling bronze usnias. It was a good item that would be fought over once it was placed on the shelves. Zhou Jiesin, who originally wanted to support him, ended up waiting for Lin Yuan's usnias to be placed on the shelves. After that, Zhou Jiesin was certain that there was a creation master behind Lin Yuan. Later on, Lin Yuan became a shareholder of the store and regularly provided the store with silver usnias. Zhou Jiesin was even more convinced of this. But then, Lin Yuan's style became a little incomprehensible to Zhou Jiesin. A large number of bigwigs suddenly swarmed into the Purchase with No Loss Stores fan club. Lin Yuan even publicly auctioned the flower brocade pearls in the group. The flower brocade pearls were phased that even creation masters would fight to collect. Any one of them could be auctioned in the Rare Lifeform Pavilion for hundreds of thousands of radiance dollars. However, Lin Yuan actually had dozens or even hundreds of such items on the shelves in his store. Later on, during the All-Star match, Lin Yuan was a lucky spectator. He actually defeated the Barbarian Snake Club's main member, Meng Su. It was then that Zhou Jiesin realized that the youth that she had treated as a younger brother was actually a hidden genius. Zhou Jiesin felt that she was not worthy of such a Lin Yuan. Therefore, Zhou Jiesin had never taken the initiative to contact Lin Yuan after understanding his identity. Later on, the Purchase with No Loss store auctioned the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls. To Zhou Jiesin, the flower brocade pearls were things that she couldn't afford even if she went bankrupt. Therefore, Zhou Jiesin didn't have a special concept of the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls. After all, resources like the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls wouldn't be auctioned in the Rare Lifeform Pavilion. Such a good item would never appear in private auctions below the Emperor level. Although Zhou Jiesin knew that Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls were very expensive, she had never had a clear idea about Lin Yuan. It was only then that Zhou Jiesin realized Lin Yuan's words. To think that he could pull a relationship with a top faction for his little 5-star shop. What kind of energy was this? If his Star Web store really had the protection of a pinnacle faction, the Du Immortal Garden, then he would definitely be able to protect it. Once the old and rising power found out about this, they would definitely hide far away and not dare to have any ideas about his shop. He was even worried that he would settle scores with him later on. This made Zhou Jiesin very happy. No matter what, the store that he had poured his heart, soul into had been saved. However, Zhou Jiesin was not very clear about Lin Yuan's question. Suddenly, Zhou Jiesin's eyes lit up, and she said to Lin Yuan, "Lin Yuan, let's go." In a while, a Class 2 creation master should be coming to settle the wages. When he comes, we'll ask him together and we'll know. Upon hearing Zhou Jiesin's words, Lin Yuan nodded. As Zhou Jiesin's shop was having a discount, there were abnormally many people. The violent-tempered woman and the 5 employees were too busy. Lin Yuan had the experience of opening a shop and entertaining customers. While waiting for the Class 2 creation master, Lin Yuan even helped Zhou Jiesin receive a few customers. Soon enough, the Class 2 creation master arrived at Zhou Jiesin's shop. The Class 2 creation master had a rather arrogant expression, but he was rather friendly to Zhou Jiesin. It was obvious that he had a good relationship with Zhou Jiesin. Zhou Jiesin reached out to pat on Lin Yuan's shoulder, and spoke to the Class 2 creation master. "Lord Fei, my brother. My partner would like to ask you about the Whale Ocean Trading's recruitment for an experiment. When the Class 2 creation master with the surname Fei heard Zhou Jiesen's words, he glanced at Lin Yuan and said, "The Whale Ocean Trading is recruiting creation masters, not creation masters. Whale Ocean Trade is recruiting creation masters, not creation masters. What's the use of asking about this?" Hearing that, Zhou Jiesen twitched the corner of her mouth, revealing an awkward smile. She looked at Lin Yuan apologetically. Even as the owner of a 5-star shop, Zhou Jiesen's status couldn't be compared to a Class 2 creation master. When they met and talked, Zhou Jiesen had to address the Class 2 creation master as Lord. Therefore, if the Class 2 creation master wasn't willing to speak, Zhou Jiesen couldn't force him. Chapter 1465. Lin Yuan stepped forward and said, "I happen to be a Class 2 creation master as well. I happen to be a Class 2 creation master too. I would like to understand the Whale Ocean Trade experiment." Upon hearing that Lin Yuan was a Class 2 creation master, the Class 2 creation master with the surname Fei had a flash of surprise in his eyes. Fei Yu had never heard of a Class 2 creation master at such a young age. However, in the Radiance Federation, using a creation master's identity to swindle others was a serious crime, and no one dared to do so. Zhou Jiesen was also at the side, and this youth would not lie to him. Therefore, Fei Yu became friendly with Lin Yuan. Although Fei Yu was also a Class 2 creation master, he was still very willing to associate with a Class 2 creation master of Lin Yuan's age. Lin Yuan might become a Class 3 creation master at some point in time, and there was no harm in forming some good karma. Fei Yu quickly explained to Lin Yuan about the Whale Ocean Trade's recruitment of creation masters to participate in the experiment. "Brother, if you wish to participate in the Whale Ocean Trade's experiment, you must hurry up and register. If you don't register today, the registration will be closed tomorrow morning." Lin Yuan's expression changed slightly. "Brother, do you know what experiment the Whale Ocean Trade is going to conduct?" Fei Yu was stumped by Lin Yuan's question. Fei Yu could not tell what experiment the Whale Ocean Trade was going to conduct by recruiting so many creation masters. Normally, when top factions recruited creation masters to conduct Fei experiments, they would require the creation master's star class. However, the Whale Ocean Trade did not have a star class restriction. Be it a Class 4 or a Class 1 creation master, they would all be accepted. Since he did not know, Fei Yu did not answer Lin Yuan's question, and changed the topic. "Brother, have you heard of the Whale Ocean Trade's Ocean Sky lineage?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan frowned. He stared into Fei Yu's eyes and nodded. Fei Yu did not notice the change in Lin Yuan's eyes and continued speaking. "I heard that those who perform well in this experiment will have the chance to be accepted by the Ocean Sky lineage's pinnacle Class 4 creation master as a disciple. This is a good opportunity. It is because of the Whale Ocean Trade's offer that I want to give it a try." Fei Yu sighed as he said this. "Otherwise, I can work in Boss Zhou's store and live a comfortable life." Upon hearing Fei Yu's words, Lin Yuan was certain that Whale Ocean Trade had ill intentions. The Sea Sky lineage's creation masters had already been assassinated by the Myriad Flag's lineage and turned into ghosts. How could a dead soul accept a disciple? Just as Lin Yuan was pondering, Fei Yu and Zhou Jiesen had settled the payment. Fei Yu muttered before leaving, "I'm almost in the Radiance 100 sequence, and I'm participating in the Whale Ocean Trade's experiment at this time. I wonder if I can make it in time to watch the Radiance 100 sequence selection." Upon hearing Fei Yu's mutterings, Lin Yuan felt enlightened. Lin Yuan had been thinking that if the Whale Ocean Trade really took the lives of these creation masters, the creation masters wouldn't be able to survive. How could he be so brazen? Now Lin Yuan understood. The Whale Ocean Trading Company revealed that there were 2 immortal beings in their faction. It was also revealed that the faction's young family head had plans to run for the Radiance Envoy position. It was clear that Whale Ocean Trade was trying to stall for time and shake off the Highness's idea. In the end, during this period of time, the Huihai Treaty was unilaterally torn apart by the Sea Race. The Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation were separated by tens of millions of miles, and they were using sacred source life forms to trigger a meteorological phenomenon. In addition, the Radiance 100 sequence selection was imminent, and the envoys of the Azure Federation and the Freedom Federation were dispatched. These three matters attracted all the Highness's attention. They had no time to care about the Whale Ocean Trade's actions. In other words, the Whale Ocean Trade was trying to seize this opportunity. It was bringing forward the matter that they had been planning, but did not dare to implement. After Fei Yu left, Lin Yuan checked his purchase with No Lost Stores fan club. Lin Yuan found that most of the creation masters in the group were discussing the Whale Ocean Trade. Among the creation masters that belonged to factions, some were tempted. As for the creation masters that did not belong to any faction, almost all of them wanted to give it a try. Among them was Master Duan Li, who had worked for Lin Yuan for 3 months. After solving Zhou Jiesen's problem, Lin Yuan left Star Web. The first thing he did after leaving Star Web was to ask Wen Yu to investigate this matter. Soon, Wen Yu found the registration method to participate in the Whale Ocean Trade's experiment. Since he was going to register, it was not appropriate for Lin Yuan to wear his current face. Lin Yuan asked Wen Yu to give him a faceless paper. Lin Yuan stuck the faceless paper on his face, and soon his exquisite facial features became ordinary under the effect of the faceless paper. There were 2 ways to register for the Whale Ocean Trade's experiment. You could either register on the Star Web or register offline. The Royal Capital had a registration point for the Whale Ocean Trade. Lin Yuan headed to the Whale Ocean Trade's registration point in the Royal Capital in reality. When filling in his name, Lin Yuan thought for a moment. He filled in the name Chu Yuan. After the registration, Lin Yuan was informed by the Whale Ocean Trade staff. 4 days later, gather at the registration point. After chatting with the Whale Ocean Trade staff, Lin Yuan learned that the Whale Ocean Trade's old residence was in the Royal Capital. Since the Whale Ocean Trade's old residence was in the Royal Capital, those who registered in the Royal Capital could report at a later time. At a place far away from the Royal Capital, when the registration deadline was today, there would be specialized flying phase. There were specialized flying type phase that carried these registered creation masters to the Royal Capital. Lin Yuan thought to himself. In another 4 days, he would be able to find out why the Whale Ocean Trade wanted the creation masters' lives. At night, the night was chilly, and the grass and trees were covered in frost. Such weather was truly unusual for the Royal Capital's March mid-spring season. In a study room filled with books on a completely jade-textured wooden shelf, a dignified middle-aged man was holding a black chess piece and placing it on the chessboard. In an instant, he ate more than half of the white chess piece belonging to the man who looked a little like him. Upon seeing the situation, the man holding the white chess piece hurriedly said, "Big brother, I'll repeat my previous move. Big brother, I'll repeat my previous move. I won't play in the 7 horizontal and 9 vertical positions." Upon hearing that, the dignified middle-aged man's hand did not stop picking up the white chess piece. "Wancheng, there are no regrets when you play. If you don't play in the 7 horizontal and 9 vertical positions, how can you eat my 36 pieces instead? It's a pity that I've seen through your thoughts." With that said, the dignified middle-aged man scattered the chess pieces in his hand on the chessboard. He clearly did not have the mood to continue playing chess. Di Wancheng also fell silent. The Whale Ocean Trade's myriad flags lineage was now playing a dangerous move. This move would last for thousands of years. However, no one in the Whale Ocean Trade could afford to pay the price of losing. The outcome of losing would be that everyone in the Whale Ocean Trade would become the People's Glory Empire's sinners. All of them would perish. After a short silence, Di Wantian and Di Wancheng revealed frenzied expressions. Chapter 1466. Di Wantian asked, "Wancheng, how many creation masters did you say were participating in our experiment?" A smile appeared on Di Wancheng's face. "Big brother, there are too many Class 1 creation masters that registered. I can't remember them all. There are 621 Class 2 creation masters, 74 Class 3 creation masters, and 12 Class 4 creation masters." At this point, Di Wancheng paused for a moment before continuing. "Big brother, these creation masters' lives should be enough to fill Third Sister's path to becoming a Class 5 creation master, right? But big brother, Isn't it a bit too early for us to act now? When Di Wantian heard Di Wanqing's words, he shook his head. He reached his hand into the chess pot and picked up a black chess piece. He said as he stroked the black chess piece, "Early? It's getting late. Our previous plan was too late." However, who would have thought that due to fate, Hui Yao would have a conflict with the Sea Clan and set a 3-year agreement with the Freedom Federation. In addition, the Freedom Federation's envoys will be heading to Radiance to observe the Radiance 100 sequence selection. The Freedom Federation's envoys will definitely cause trouble during the Radiance 100 sequence selection. Those majesties are probably making arrangements for the Radiance 100 sequence selection in 3 months. It could be said that this is the moment when His Majesty's attention is at its weakest. Now is the best time for us to strike. Wan Cheng, don't forget that third sister's condition cannot be delayed. The longer this drags on, the worse third sister's condition will become. Hearing Di Wantian's words, Di Wanqing became firm. However, Di Wanqing's heart was still trembling. If even the slightest hint of this matter was leaked to any of the majesties, the whale ocean trade would be finished. However, when he thought about how his third sister would be able to become a Class 5 creation master through these creation masters in a few days, Jiang Yi's heart skipped a beat. Di Wanqing couldn't help but relax. When his third sister became a Class 5 creation master, Hui Yao would have its 4th Class 5 creation master. The current situation where the 3 Class 5 creation masters reign supreme would be split into 4. His third sister would take a share. Those low-class creation masters were already dead, and the Radiance's eminences had no reason to do so just because of those dead creation masters. What did he do to his third sister? Upon thinking of this, Di Wanqing even felt that the whale ocean trade was contributing to the Republic of Radiance. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Di Wanqing furrowed his brows for a moment before relaxing and asking, "Is it Hao? Come in." No one dared to disturb Di Wantian's study room, other than Di Wanqing and the so-called third sister. Only Di Wantian could enter the study room. Di Hao was the only son of Di Wantian. Di Wantian's first wife had died early, so Di Wantian doted on his only son, Zhai Hao. As soon as Di Wantian finished speaking, a hoarse voice of a young man came from the door. "Father, Uncle Wu told me to tell you that the 4-legged beast region's people have been invited to our home as guests." At this point, Zhai Hao asked doubtfully, "Dad, why don't I see anyone from the 4-legged beast region? Furthermore, our whale ocean trade deals in the distant seas. There is nothing to communicate with a faction like the 4-legged beast region that deals with beast-type phase." Hearing this, Di Wantian stood up. He personally led Zhai Hao to his side and sat him down. "How are you? Don't have to worry about these things. Focus on practicing your combat skills. Your sacred source life form has only reached 3-star. You still have to work hard." Zhai Hao pouted and looked at Di Wantian. He was a little dissatisfied with Di Wantian's attitude. Zhai Hao never understood why every time he had questions, Di Wantian would always change the topic and not answer his questions directly. His father, Di Wantian, would always change the topic and not answer his questions directly. It was just like how he had asked more than once about his third aunt's whereabouts. Every time, his father would say that his third aunt had gone out to train and had not returned yet. But what kind of training could last for more than a decade? In any case, Zhai Hao did not believe these words. Although Zhai Hao was a little dissatisfied with Di Wantian's urging, he still agreed. "Father, don't worry. You gave me so many suzerain metal ores last time. Once my sacred source life form digests all these ores, it will naturally reach 4-star. I heard that Chef Supreme's disciple's sacred source life form reached 4-star during the Evernight Assembly's civil and martial arena competition. When my sacred source life form reaches 4-star, I wonder who will be stronger, Chef Supreme's disciple or me." Zhai Hao's eyes were filled with yearning as he spoke. Seeing Zhai Hao's yearning gaze, Di Wantian's heart tightened. Ever since the whale ocean trading and the tower cannon had formed an alliance, his third sister had discovered a strange path that could allow her to become a Class 5 creation master. Di Wantian had isolated Zhai Hao. Firstly, he did not want Zhai Hao to know about the family's dirty affairs. Secondly, he did not want Zhai Hao to come into contact with the outside world and reveal his abilities. If Zhai Hao was too outstanding, he would definitely attract Her Majesty's attention to the whale ocean trading. Diwantian felt guilty towards Zhai Hao. If the question had not been asked by Zhai Hao, Diwantian would not have hesitated to say that Zhongzhe was stronger. Zhongzhe's strength was not just because of his 4-star sacred source life form. It was also because Zhongzhe had a desolate bloodline Fei. It was impossible for Zhai Hao to have a desolate bloodline Fei. However, the situation would soon change. Once his third sister became a Class 5 creation master, she would definitely have the ability to compete for a position under Her Majesty. When that time came, the whale ocean trading would become Her Majesty's kin. Zhai Hao would also become Her Majesty's heir. Zhai Hao would naturally be qualified to obtain a desolate bloodline Fei. During these 2 years, his third sister, a Class 5 creation master, would fully nurture Zhai Hao. Why would Zhai Hao have to worry about not obtaining a position as a Radiance envoy? When that time came, Zhai Hao would stand at the peak of thousands and enjoy the admiration of thousands. This was the path that Diwantian had paved for Zhai Hao. Now this path was about to be paved. Diwantian gave Zhai Hao a few more instructions, which made Zhai Hao annoyed. Zhai Hao found an excuse to leave Diwantian's study room. Diwantian could not help but say as he watched Zhai Hao leave, "Big brother, Hao Er's sacred source life form might not have any special characteristics, but before Class 6, it has a killing power that other sacred source life forms cannot compare to. Under Third Sister's guidance, even if Hao Er cannot obtain the first position as a Radiance envoy, it should not be a problem for him to obtain 4 or 5 positions." Hearing this, Diwantian nodded in agreement and said, "I cannot see through the Moon Empress disciple and Chief Guard Ye's disciple. The Moon Empress disciple's sacred source life form seems to be immune to elemental attributes, but the sacred source life form in the form of a young girl actually turned into a sword. I do not believe that the Moon Empress has a way to let her disciple contract 2 sacred source life forms at such a young age." Chapter 1467. Right now, Hao Er's strongest attack can barely reach the level of a myth breed, but the full-powered attack of the Moon Empress disciple 2 months ago can already reach the level of myth 3. It also contains a trace of the power of the world. Chief Guard Ye's disciple has summoned a total of 4 insect-type carcinoma phase. Furthermore, each insect-type carcinoma phase strength has reached Diamond X/Legend. Bureau Chief Ye's disciple is a natural disaster in human form. Once he matures, he can destroy the entire continent in an extremely short amount of time. Even if such a person isn't strong in a one-on-one fight, he's invincible in a group battle. In the Radiance Envoy's group battle selection, Chief Guard Ye's disciple will definitely obtain 10 points. Bamboo Monarch's disciple chose the one arena and did not participate. However, rumor has it that Bamboo Monarch's disciple's sacred source life form has already reached 4 stars, and it just so happened that it was countered by Chef Supreme's disciple's sacred source life form. As for how far Hao Er can go, it all depends on Third Sister's training. Second brother, go and make arrangements to kill everyone in the 4-legged beast region apart from the creation masters. Send all the creation masters from the 4-legged beast region to Third Sister, and let her handle them. Diwanqing asked hesitantly after hearing that. Big brother, should we let Third Sister deal with the creation masters first before we deal with the creation masters in the 4-legged beast region? The Du family stands behind the 4-legged beast region, a new peak power. Diwantian snorted coldly. That's right. If the Du family really wants to stand up for the 4-legged beast region, and send all of their members to our Whale Ocean Trading Company, do you think our Whale Ocean Trading Company is afraid of the Du family? 10 years ago, the Du family couldn't beat us in the battle for the mines. 10 years later, the Du family still can't protect the 4-legged beast region. Moreover, I don't wish to hide anything from the creation master recruitment this time. When Third Sister becomes a Class 5 creation master, even if the Hearthstone Du family finds out that my Whale Ocean trade destroyed the 4-legged beast region, what will they do? Could it be that the camaraderie between factions gives the Du family the courage to be impudent in front of a Class 5 creation master? When Diwanqing heard Diwantian's words, he immediately left to deal with the guests that Awu had tricked into coming to the 4-legged beast region. After registering, he was preparing to work hard in the Spirit Lock spatial zone at night. As a result, Lin Yuan was stopped by Chimey. Over the past few days, whenever Chimey had been live streaming on Star Web, there would always be bullet comments saying that Chimey had been maliciously creating hype. He said that he wanted to use the Star Web's income to establish a Warm Sun Fund to help phase and spirit chi professionals. In the end, not a single sound was heard. At first, Chimey didn't care about the bullet comments, as Lin Yuan had already promised it. In Chimey's opinion, nothing would go wrong with what Lin Yuan had promised it. However, it was precisely because Chimey didn't care about the bullet screen. Many viewers in Enin's live streaming room saw the bullet screen. Everyone started to discuss, causing many anchors in the attractive section to take the lead to question Chimey. This caused Chimey, a live streamer that had become popular on the Star Web the moment it debuted, to suffer a rare setback. For example, Enin's live broadcast room had become a shiraba. This made it impossible for Chimey to sing in peace. In the face of all sorts of doubts, Chimey felt very wronged. In the beginning, he was a sound bird that didn't even know how to sing. He truly wanted to help phase like himself and genius, as well as spirit chi professionals like Lin Yuan. He wasn't a swindler and black-hearted live streamer that the bullet screen said he was. The more Chimey thought about it, the sadder it got. When it explained the situation to Lin Yuan, its eyes involuntarily became wet, and 2 drops of tears rolled down. Lin Yuan didn't treat the Warm Sun Fund lightly. On the contrary, Lin Yuan had already made arrangements. He had asked the experienced Sun Ningxiang to help plan the Warm Sun Fund's development direction. No matter how capable Lin Yuan was, he was only one person. Doing things required time. Unexpectedly, some people on the Star Web couldn't wait any longer. They used this matter as a weapon to question and attack Chimey. Ever since Lin Yuan had formed a contract with Chimey, this was the 3rd time he had seen Chimey cry. The first 2 times Chimey had cried was because he had fainted. This time, Chimey was crying because it had suffered a great grievance. Lin Yuan quickly reached out and gently wiped Chimey's tears with his fingertips. Chimey, the Warm Sun Fund structure has been constantly being constructed. The starting point is the Xia region where we live together. I originally wanted to tell you that the Warm Sun Fund's first stop will officially begin in 2 days. Since you can't wait any longer, I'll spread the news tonight. Lin Yuan's tone became solemn. Chimey, no matter how powerful a person is, they will never be able to care about what is going on in someone else's head. But Chimey, you have to remember this saying. Do good deeds and don't ask about the future. Don't worry. Those voices that question you will all disappear tomorrow morning. You can live stream as usual tomorrow night. Although Lin Yuan had said this to Chimey, he was already really angry. The situation had developed so quickly and even reached such a scale. There must be someone pushing it from behind. The only ones who could push it were the anchors who clashed with Chimey. The human heart was made of flesh, and the audience's eyes were bright. This matter was enough to rise to a hot moral issue. Those anchors who tried to use morality to suppress Chimey were destined to suffer moral backlash after the Warm Sun Fund was officially launched. Lin Yuan didn't need to do anything. Those anchors who stirred up emotions would be besieged by Star Web netizens who knew the truth. Lin Yuan took out his cell phone and called Fan Hansheng, Sun Ningxiang, Long Tao, and Li Xian. Finally, he would finalize the Warm Sun Fund's matters. It was officially confirmed that the Warm Sun Fund's first stop would be officially launched tomorrow morning. The Warm Sun Fund was just a newly established charity fund. However, it had the plant species phase provided by the Dew Immortal Garden, the flying species phase provided by the Dawn Cloud Avian Niche, the dragon species phase provided by the Coiling Dragon Valley, and the insect species phase provided by the Brahma Insect Cage. There were also the offline channels of the 4 top factions. As for beast species phase, amphibious phase, and fish species phase, Lin Yuan had yet to find a channel for these phase. He could just use the Warm Sun Fund to buy them on StarWeb. Of course, this didn't mean that the phase obtained from the 4 top factions were free. The Dew Immortal Garden had now become a subordinate faction of Sky City, so it was another matter. Lin Yuan would purchase the corresponding phase for the Coiling Dragon Valley, the Dawn Cloud Avian Niche, and the Brahma Insect Cage according to the market price. However, the quality of the phase supplied for the Coiling Dragon Valley, the Dawn Cloud Avian Niche, and the Brahma Insect Cage had to be guaranteed. The Warm Sun Fund was Chimy's idea. Even without Chimy's idea, Lin Yuan already had plans to establish a charity fund. Lin Yuan didn't hope that those unfortunate people could become experts through the Warm Sun Fund. Instead, he hoped that those unfortunate people could live a little happier through the Warm Sun Fund. At the very least, they wouldn't have to struggle in misery like before. Instead, they could live a carefree life. Chapter 1468. The first rays of dawn pierced through the darkness and dispersed the night fog. It was daybreak. The chicken species phase reared in the Fei store on the street started to crow, causing a few complaints to be heard from the store. When a person woke up, it was usually the time when they were the most energetic. However, it wasn't the case for Li Ziqiang. After Li Ziqiang opened his eyes, he looked at the middle-aged woman beside him. He then couldn't help but lie on the bed in a daze. Li Ziqiang was an ordinary person and not a spirit chi professional. His wife was also an ordinary person. Not long ago, Li Ziqiang's son Li Zhong had just turned 8 years old. When he went to check on his talent, he confirmed that Li Zhong had the qualifications to become a spirit chi professional. His affinity with phase was power offense type insect species phase. The Li family had only one son for 3 generations, and there had never been a spirit chi professional. Li Zhong's talent as a spirit chi professional was a glorious matter for the entire Li family. However, before Li Ziqiang and his wife could be happy for a few days, Wang Xuemei had contracted a strange illness. She would feel dizzy and nauseous all day long, and she wouldn't have the strength to do anything. After eating for less than 5 minutes, she would vomit. Li Ziqiang found some experienced doctors to check on the situation. However, these experienced doctors couldn't see what illness Wang Xuemei was suffering from. Li Ziqiang really had no other choice and spent a lot of money to find a healing-type spirit chi professional. After checking on Wang Xuemei's situation, the healing-type spirit chi professional determined that Wang Xuemei's soul should have a problem. It would cause dizziness, nausea, and weakness. If it was a spiritual problem, Li Ziqiang could find a healing-type spirit chi professional with a spiritual-type fei to immediately cure Wang Xuemei's illness. However, when it came to the soul, the healing-type spirit chi professional wouldn't be able to handle it. In order to cure Wang Xuemei, Li Ziqiang had to find a Class 2 or above creation master. This was because the spirit fluid concocted by a Class 1 creation master couldn't solve the problem of the soul. However, in order to get a Class 2 creation master to treat her, Li Ziqiang would need at least 20 radiance dollars. Li Ziqiang had some skills and had been working under a Class 1 spirit craftsman. Li Ziqiang had saved 17 or 18 radiance dollars after saving more than 10 years of time. Li Ziqiang had originally intended to use these 17 or 18 radiance dollars to choose an outstanding power offense-type insect species fei for his son, Li Zhong. An outstanding starter fei would allow his son to have greater development in the future. Perhaps he might catch the eye of a teacher in an intermediate Spirit Chi Academy. He had been recommended from the Xia region's Spirit Chi Academy to Redbud City's Spirit Chi Academy. However, his wife desperately needed the money to save her life. His son also needed this money to be one step ahead of others at the starting line. If Li Ziqiang contracted this strange illness, he would leave the money for his son to choose a fei. But in the end, looking at the pained expression on his sleeping wife's face, Li Ziqiang steeled his heart and thought to himself, he would go out to borrow some money later. Even if he had to go into debt, he had to cure his wife. As for his son, he would take care of himself. What kind of man would he be if he didn't save his wife when she was sick? At the thought of this, Li Ziqiang quickly got up and went to his elder sister's house in the Xia region to borrow money. After spending 20 radiance dollars, he pulled some strings again. In the evening, Wang Xuemei had returned to normal. Li Ziqiang was afraid that Wang Xuemei wouldn't be willing to treat her if she knew he had to spend 20 radiance dollars. Thus, he had been hiding it from Wang Xuemei. When Wang Xuemei found out that Li Ziqiang had spent 20 radiance dollars to treat her, she immediately cried. Wang Xuemei blamed herself and started crying. Big drops of tears rolled down her cheeks. Upon seeing the situation, Li Ziqiang reached out to hug Wang Xuemei and gently patted her shoulder. Although he was comforting Wang Xuemei, Li Ziqiang also revealed a bitter smile. To owe his elder sister's family 3 radiance dollars, Li Ziqiang would have to work hard to earn it for a year and a half. When it came to his son, he could only choose a normal power offense-type insect species Fey with uncertain abilities and exclusive skills. Spirit Chi professionals couldn't change the contract with a Fey. If this power offense-type insect species Fey reached bronze, the awakened exclusive skill would be useless, or it wouldn't be suitable for offense. Even if his son became a Spirit Chi professional, he would only be able to blend into the masses. Just as the husband and wife were walking home in a lonely manner, they saw a lot of people queuing up in front of a building and discussing something. As they were discussing, Li Ziqiang and Wang Xuemei could vaguely hear the words Fei free, and so on. Perhaps he felt that the queue was a little messy, so a Spirit Chi professional walked out of the building and said loudly, "Everyone be quiet. Line up properly. I will count the people in a while. I'll do a head count later. Those who are ranked below 500 can come back tomorrow morning after 7 o'clock. Otherwise, even if we line up until night time, we might not be able to get anyone. In addition, everyone has to remember that when choosing a Fey, you have to go to the Xia region's administrative officer to complete the corresponding identity verification procedures. Otherwise, you won't be able to obtain the Warm Sun Foundation's Fey." After hearing the staff member's words, many of the people in the queue expressed their gratitude. They immediately turned around and rushed to the administrative office where the Xia region's administrative officer was located. Many of the people here had heard the news when they were passing by and had joined in. Therefore, they didn't know the rules. Only those who had lined up earlier and understood the rules would go through the procedures at the administrative officer's office. There were already plenty of people who had completed the procedures at the administrative officer's office and had their identities verified. They brought their children or themselves into the building to receive a suitable Fey. The Xia region might be a small place, but in the Radiance Federation, every citizen had the right to log into the Star Web. Chimey was a phenomenal host on the Star Web. Among the pedestrians who were singing, at least 3 out of 10 of them were singing the songs that Chimey had sung before. After hearing the words Warm Sun Foundation, many of them immediately took out their mobile phones and recorded a short video. They were prepared to record everything and post it on the Star Web. Things were going so smoothly that they could even go to the administrative officer's office to verify the situation. Firstly, it was due to the massive offline channels that the 4 major factions had. Secondly, it was also because Lin Yuan had informed Elder Ning in advance, and Elder Ning had informed Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao had immediately given an order to the Xia region's administrative officer. He had asked the Xia region's administrative officer to fully cooperate with the Warm Sun Foundation. The Warm Sun Foundation's first stop in Redbud City's Xia region was an opportunity for Redbud City. Redbud City had a lot of rain throughout the year, and there were many mountains and dense forests. There was even a side of the sea that was covered with submerged reefs. It was impossible to construct a dock to berth large fish Feys. It could be said that when compared to other major cities, Redbud City didn't have any advantages. Chapter 1469. Ling Xiao had already learned from Elder Ning who was behind the Nuanyang Fund. It was the disciple that he had personally sent to the Moon Empress, Lin Yuan. Moreover, the Warm Sun Fund was not just Lin Yuan's matter alone. He had also pulled in 4 top factions. It could be said that the scale of all the charity funds that had appeared in Radiance was no match for the Warm Sun Fund. News of the Nuanyang Fund would be posted on the Star Web today. As the scale of the Warm Sun Fund increased, it would soon spread throughout the Star Web. At that time, the exposure of the Nuanyang Fund was equivalent to the exposure of Redbud City. Perhaps this matter could even attract some rising and established powers to move their headquarters to Redbud City. This wasn't the first time Ling Xiao wanted to take the initiative to communicate with Lin Yuan. However, after some consideration, Ling Xiao finally gave up on the idea of taking the initiative to look for Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan was doing a good deed of helping others unconditionally. This kind of thing should not be involved with his own little calculations. Ning Yanting was a veteran of Redbud City, and with Ning Yanting communicating with Lin Yuan, Lin Yuan would be able to communicate with him. He did not need to communicate with Lin Yuan again. Ling Xiao made up his mind. In the future, as long as it was related to the Warm Sun Fund, he would cooperate unconditionally. It was said that the Nuanyang Fund was in contact with some counties outside of Xia region. Ling Xiao decided to personally pave the way for the Warm Sun Fund. He must not allow the Moon Empress disciples' free heart to be tainted by the selfish desires of some vile people. After Li Ziqiang understood the situation, he anxiously dragged his wife, Wang Xuemei, and his son Li Zhong to the administrator to verify the situation. At this moment, Wang Xuemei, who had always been cautious, spoke to Li Ziqiang. "Hubby, take Zhong to Lord Feng to verify the situation. Let's split up. I'll stay here and observe the situation." After living for so many years, Wang Xuemei had never encountered such a pie falling from the sky. Although it seemed that there was no problem at all. But it was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't be tricked once he entered the house. For a family like Wang Xuemei who was in debt, any loss was unbearable. Therefore, Wang Xuemei wanted to understand the situation first. He wanted to see if the people who came out of the houses had obtained any phase. Li Ziqiang felt that Wang Xuemei's words were reasonable. "Alright. Then I'll first bring Zhong to the administrative office to verify the situation with Lord Feng. After verifying the situation, I'll come here. I'll be lining up here all night. I will strive to let Zhong obtain a fei tomorrow." Li Ziqiang decided to stay up all night to queue here, because he was afraid that the site opened by the Nuanyang Fund might be cancelled one day. When Li Ziqiang returned home after work, he would always surf the star web. Li Ziqiang loved listening to songs, so it was impossible for him not to know about the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess. Although Li Ziqiang had never tipped Chimey before, he was definitely Chimey's old fan. Li Ziqiang happened to watch the livestream where the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess announced that she was going to establish the Warm Sun Foundation. In Li Ziqiang's opinion, the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess had taken out all the money she had earned to set up the Warm Sun Fund. However, no matter how much money the Nuanyang Fund had, it could not withstand such a consumption. Li Ziqiang returned home and brought Li Zhong to the administrative office. During the verification process, Wang Xuemei noticed that almost everyone who entered the room would walk out with a fei and pleasant surprise. All of a sudden, the sharp-eyed Wang Xuemei noticed a familiar face among these people. Wang Xuemei quickly took 2 steps forward and asked the young girl who was walking over, "Little Lan, why are you here?" "Little Lan, why are you here? I'm going to bake some sesame seed cakes tonight. I'll send some over to you after I'm done. Don't be polite with Auntie Wang this time." The young girl standing in front of Zhang Xuelan looked at Wang Xuemei with gratitude and said, "Thank you, Auntie Wang." "Thank you, Auntie Wang." While speaking, Zhang Lan had some doubts in her heart. Wang Xuemei's family conditions weren't bad, and she had at least over 10 radiance dollars in savings. The Nuanyang Fund helped those who didn't have savings and were truly in trouble. Wang Xuemei didn't meet the conditions of the Nuanyang Fund at all. At that moment, Zhang Lan heard Wang Xuemei's hopeful voice. "Little Lan, are feis given out for free here?" Zhang Lan nodded and replied, "It is true that feis are given out for free here. This place is indeed giving out feis for free. Furthermore, it will choose the feis abilities and exclusive skills based on the spirit chi professional's talent. We also receive patients here, and can help those who don't have the ability to seek medical treatment. The reason I came here is to treat my leg injury. Auntie Wang, now that my leg injury has recovered, I can go and earn money to take care of Grandma from now on." After speaking, Zhang Lan seemed to want to share her joy and jogged in front of Wang Xuemei. Immediately after, Zhang Lan explained the rules in detail to Li Xuemei. Then she skipped home, ready to share her happiness with her grandmother. Upon hearing that, Li Xuemei felt a little complicated. If Li Ziqiang had chosen to use his family's money to prepare feis for his son, she would have come here to treat her illness. According to the review rules, she wouldn't have been able to pass the review at all. Fortunately, Li Ziqiang had chosen to spend all his family's savings to treat her. Because of her illness, her family was in debt, which was why she was able to meet the Nuanyang Medical Center's review standards. At that moment, she was very happy and thankful. She was happy that Li Ziqiang loved her, and at the same time, she was thankful for the kindness of the person who sponsored the Nuanyang Fund. It was the kindness of the person who sponsored the Nuanyang Fund that ignited hope for her small family. On this night, the star web was not peaceful at all. The Xia region's star web netizens only took up a small portion of the star web. However, those videos and pictures of the Nuanyang Fund were like a prairie fire. When Chimey was live streaming at night, it was afraid of encountering the previous situation again. As expected, once Chimey started live streaming, those haters and fake reviewers in Chimey's live streaming room kept sending bullet comments to question Chimey. Chimey recalled that Lin Yuan had said that it could live stream with peace of mind tonight, so it didn't bother about the bullet comments. It just minded its own business and sang a song. The night wind blows the white hair on your temples, soothing the scars left behind by memories in your eyes. Light and darkness are intertwined. A smile blossoms, the twilight conceals your unsteady steps. Walking into the bedside to hide the painting in the painting. You speak with your head lowered. I still lament at the vastness of the world, and indulge in the love words of my childhood, leaving no truth or falsehood. Without struggle, pointless jokes, I finally return my youth to her, along with the midsummer that flicked from my fingertips with a move of my heart. It goes with the wind in the name of love. Are you still willing? At that moment, some strange noises were heard among the bullet screens that were questioning Chimey. Chapter 1470. Wenzi. So many of you are scolding Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. Are you sincere? If you're sincere, then your hearts are black. There was no host on StarWeb who was willing to take out all their income to set up a fund. Since the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess dared to say it, she would definitely do it. How long has it been since the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess mentioned preparing the Warm Sun Fund? Do you think it doesn't take time to prepare a fund? Did he say that he could immediately prepare it tomorrow? If you haters had been incited to attack the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess, it would still be understandable. However, if you were hired by someone to earn money against your conscience, wouldn't your hearts hurt? Wenzi was furious when she sent the bullet screen. Wenzi was not an old fan of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. The Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had been live streaming on the StarWeb for more than 8 months. Wenzi had only entered the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live stream room by chance 2 months ago. Wenzi did not know much about the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. She only liked its singing. Wenzi would memorize the lyrics of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess song and learn to sing it. When did Wenzi truly become a fan of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess and love her from the bottom of her heart? It was the night when the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess revealed her face and live streamed about establishing the Warm Sun Foundation. A talented person would only be appreciated by others. Only with virtue would people find her adorable. Previously, Wenzi had visited the live broadcast rooms of other talent and attractive anchors. Wenzi was more or less familiar with the fans on the leaderboard. Many of the people who were spamming the bullet screen and scolding the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess were people that Wenzi was familiar with. Wenzi's words were for these people to see, but the bullet screen was just too fast. Wenzi's serious message was quickly overwhelmed by the other messages on the bullet screen. However, it was undeniable that Wenzi's bullet screen was seen by many viewers in the live stream. Many old fans of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess responded to Wenzi's bullet screen comments. They even copied Wenzi's bullet screen and sent it out. In any matter, disagreements would lead to disputes. Chimey's live streaming room was no exception. As Chimey sang, its gaze never left the bullet screen. It could be said that Chimey had seen every bullet screen in the live streaming room. Suddenly, Chimey felt that its singing was a little boring. He was now working so hard to live stream in order to help more Fays or people like him, Genius and Lin Yuan in the past. But in the end he was misunderstood by others, and the live broadcast room was filled with arguments. The little sound bird was unwilling to be wronged like this. Chimey felt a little tired. This was because Chimey wasn't happy singing at all. Chimey suddenly missed the days when it often followed by Lin Yuan's side, and landed in his ear to sing for him alone. With this in mind, Chimey stopped singing. Chimey said as it looked at the bullet screen in the live streaming room, "I'm a little tired from singing. I hope we can meet again." After speaking, Chimey left StarWeb and didn't bother about the audience in the live streaming room. Upon seeing Chimey go offline, many anchors lurking in Chimey's talent area and attractive area revealed smiles on their faces. It could be said that Chimey's appearance was equivalent to snatching their rice bowls. Music wasn't mainstream in the Radiance Federation, and the talent zone was just a small area on Star Web. Although Chimey was live streaming in Star Web's 2nd District's attractive section, Chimey had been covering its face. It was not a threat to those top streamers in the attractive section who relied on their looks to make a living. However, ever since Eneen had revealed its face, the hosts in the attractiveness section had suffered a blow. Therefore, many streamers in the attractive section and the music section contacted each other to suppress the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. If the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had stopped her livestream to give an explanation and report on the progress of the preparation of the Warm Sun Fund, these Star Web streamers who had hired fake reviewers might feel a headache. Because once things got complicated, these paid posters would have to be paid extra. Now the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess did not even bother to explain, and just went offline. It could be understood as a sign of guilt. Now that the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had run away, they could say whatever they wanted in the live streaming room. At that moment, Bai Hao happened to enter the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live streaming room. Bai Hao, who had entered the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live stream room, felt a little confused. Just now, when he was watching the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live stream from outside, there was still a streamer doing the live stream. Why did the host disappear the moment she entered? As the Radiance 100 sequence selection was imminent, Bai Hao's 100 sequence ranking would change. Bai Hao had the thought of rushing up, so he had been training more. He did not have time to surf the Star Web. Just as Bai Hao was about to give gifts, he saw the bullet comments in the live streaming room. Bai Hao was so angry that he did not care about his Radiance 100 sequence member identity, and personally sent bullet comments to go against the fake reviewers like a young kid. Because the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had been humiliated, Bai Hao did not care about propriety when he went against the fake reviewers. His words were as nasty as they could be. Bai Hao's bullet comments really suppressed many fake reviewers and hosts. The Star Web had real name authentication. If Bai Hao wanted to contact the Star Web to investigate this matter, it would be very easy to find out their identities. However, not everyone was afraid of Bai Hao. Some of the famous Star Web streamers had some factions behind them. These famous streamers were able to have such a smooth sailing life because of the support of factions. When these famous streamers targeted the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess, they had checked and reported to the factions behind them in advance. If something went wrong, the factions behind them would cover for them. Seeing Bai Hao going against the fake reviewers, Poison Beauty, who was lurking in the live streaming room, shook her head. Poison Beauty would appear in the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live streaming room. She did not bring the fake reviewers to the Black Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. Poison Beauty was just an ordinary listener of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. But then again, Poison Beauty was very popular on the Star Web now. Previously, she could only be considered a small host outside the 5-star region in the Star Web's largest region. In order to have people watching her live streaming, she had no choice but to be stuck on the 100th floor of the Star Web Tower. She became the Celestial Stairway's goalkeeper. Later, Poison Beauty's number of fans had soared because she had ridden on Black Sparrow's popularity twice. Furthermore, she had seized the opportunity and used all her skills to retain that part of her popularity. Afterward, she was signed by the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce and became its selling host. She sold luxury items that cost at least 10,000 Radiance dollars per unit. This had allowed Poison Beauty to gain more fans. On the other hand, it had also allowed her to have a good offline income. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had very strict rules that did not allow the signed hosts to have any negative influence. Due to this job, Poison Beauty could not speak for the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess in the live streaming room. She did not dare to be like Bai Hao, who could unscrupulously send bullet comments to go against the fake reviewers. Chapter 1471. However, Poison Beauty had a hunch that the people from the Black Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess would not have a good ending. In the end, none of them would have a good ending. Since the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had said that she would forcefully take out all of her income to establish the Warm Sun Fund, It would not be empty talk. It could not be empty talk. The Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's daily donations were over 1 million radiance dollars. The Warm Sun Fund's radiance dollar reserves were at least 100 million. If a charity fund of 100 million radiance dollars was spent, it would definitely become a hot topic on Star Web. At such a time, using this matter to attack the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess was simply digging a hole for herself. She was simply digging a hole for herself and complaining that she was not dying fast enough. At that moment, a special bullet comment appeared in the live streaming room. Black Feather of Annihilation. I'm asking if those haters and fake reviewers' faces hurt? Black Feather of Annihilation's bullet comment was very short, and there was also a Star Web link below. In the live streaming room, if one wanted to post a link in the bullet comment, one would need to spend money. This was an act of advertising. The money spent was 5% of the live streaming host's daily income. The Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live streaming lasted less than 20 minutes and stopped before the 5th song was finished. During this period, the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had earned at least 800,000 radiance dollars. In other words, Black Feather of Annihilation had spent at least 40,000 radiance dollars to post this link. What kind of information would be worth 40,000 radiance dollars? Many viewers in the live streaming room were rather curious and clicked in one after another. As a result, the viewers and internet water army in the live streaming room who clicked in were shocked by the contents of the page. On the page was a very simple Star Web freewheeling post. This kind of freewheeling post was like a diary, which could record one's life at will and publish it on one's home page. This post was the confession of a pitiful person. However, this pitiful person had grabbed the starlight in despair. The post looked like a story, but there was also a video attached at the end. Upon seeing the content of this long video, many viewers and fake reviewers fell silent. Because in the video, there was an organization called the Warm Sun Foundation, which was spreading hope nonstop. It was saving every ordinary person. The one spreading all this hope was the young girl who had just been questioned and slandered in the live streaming room. That young girl had ended the live streaming. Perhaps a person would be sad because he was doubted, or wronged because he was wronged. More and more people clicked on the post. More and more people were willing to spend 40,000 radiance dollars to share the post in the live streaming room again. The sparks in the Xia region had finally started a prairie fire in Chimy's live streaming room. The internet water army no longer slandered him. There were even quite a few internet water armies with a conscience who began to apologize in the live broadcast room. Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess, I'm sorry. In the live broadcast room where there were no live streamers performing, the comments kept rolling. The last line of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's song before the live stream unknowingly echoed in the hearts of everyone in the live stream channel. In the name of love, are you still willing? This matter was constantly fermenting on Star Web. Many of the streamers who had hired the internet water army to lead this incident were exposed. The money that had been invested in Chimy had now been returned to those live streamers who had caused trouble. The turbid waves on the Star Web were surging, but at this moment, there was another wave. It was bigger and fiercer than the waves on the Star Web. On the surface of the deep blue sea, the turbid waves hit the island, raising waves 30 to 40 meters high. 2 island whales that were tens of thousands of meters long sailed side by side in the sea. Since the Celestial Body Council wasn't held as usual, Yinlin became gloomy. In another day, it would be time for the next Celestial Body Council to be held. However, would the next Celestial Body Council be held as scheduled? If he couldn't, would he lose the one who could save him from the darkness? Amidst the stars, the man who was surrounded by willpower and laws. At that moment, 2 knocks came from outside Yinlin's door. Subsequently, a gentle voice echoed. Lord Azure Envoy, Lord Lan Sun wants to look for you to discuss the temporary cooperation agreement proposed by the Freedom Federation's envoy. Yinlin frowned slightly when she heard that. Yinlin didn't like to be disturbed when she was thinking. However, since Lan Sun was looking for her, and it was to discuss important matters, she should go over. Yinlin stood up and opened the door with a wave of her azure blue dress. Seeing Yinlin, the youth who came to pass the message blushed and couldn't help but lower his head. His voice also became like a mosquito. Yinlin looked down at the youth beside her and said, Jiang Song, lead the way. Lead the way, Jiang Song. The youth called Jiang Song heard that and immediately realized that he had lost his composure. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward to lead the way. The floating island whale's back was too long. It took more than 10 minutes to walk from Yin Lin's room to the meeting place. Just as Jiang Song was nervously leading the way, he heard an ethereal and cold voice coming from behind him. Jiang Song, what's wrong? Teacher Lan Sun is tempted by the short-term cooperation proposed by the Freedom Federation's envoy. Jiang Song heard that and hurriedly shook his head. I don't know what conditions the Freedom Federation's envoy gave, and I can't see through Lord Lan Sun's intentions. I just feel that the relationship between our Azure Federation and the Radiance Federation is better than with the Freedom Federation. The purpose of our trip to the Radiance Federation this time is just to observe the ceremony and witness the coronation of the Azure Envoy. The Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation have set a 2-year agreement. It's clear that they have entered a hostile state. The Freedom Federation's envoy coming to the Radiance Federation must be up to no good. I mentioned this to Lord Lan Sun, and although he didn't say anything, I feel that he is very certain of what I said. Yin Lin heard that and nodded without continuing to speak. Yin Lin was the 4th Azure envoy. To Yin Lin, choosing benefits was the most beneficial thing for herself and the Azure Federation. Jiang Song did not know the conditions that the Freedom Federation's envoy gave, but Yin Lin was very clear. The Freedom Federation promised to give her a relic refined from a sacred source lifeform's body that was at least 5-star. No one would not be tempted by such a benefit. However, Yin Lin instinctively rejected the Freedom Federation's proposal. The reason was very simple. It was because of what the man who saved her said. He told her to go to the Radiance Federation's Royal Capital Listening Heron Union headquarters to exchange for Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. This meant that the man was most likely from the Radiance Federation. Yin Lin was not willing to do anything that was disadvantageous to the Federation that the man might have come from. Along the way to the meeting room, Yin Lin heard a somewhat shrill voice just as she reached the door. Lord Lan Sun, I suggest forming a short-term alliance with the Freedom Federation's envoy. We and the Freedom Federation's envoy are all guests to the Radiance Federation. Our 2 states' envoys should form an alliance so that we can take care of each other. Chapter 1472. At this point, the sharp voice paused for a moment before continuing. In addition, the Freedom Federation's diplomatic corps is also willing to provide each of us with a cocoon demon embryo. The cocoon demon embryo can allow insect-type cancer phase to transform into demonic-type source-type life forms. By transforming the insect-type tumor Fae into a demon-type source-type life form, the insect-type tumor Fae will be able to break through its grade and evolve into a myth breed. Hearing this sharp voice, Yin Lin, who was standing at the door, immediately pushed the door open and said coldly, Zheng Kulian, you told me about the function of the cocoon demon embryo. But if you really took the Freedom Federation's cocoon demon embryo, would you dare to use it to nurture an insect-type carcinoma Fae? For the Freedom Federation to not use such a good thing, don't you think it's laughable that it's given to you? You come from a 4-star clan, and as the inheritor of a 4-star beast mark, you shouldn't have never heard of the death of the fluorescent earthworm that happened on the Freedom Federation's 16 islands, right? Hearing Yin Lin's words, everyone in the conference room looked at Yin Lin's face. The 10 youths, including Zheng Kulian, quickly stood up and bowed to Yin Lin. When Yin Lin mentioned the death of the fluorescent earthworm, everyone's expression froze. This incident was too famous. The 16 islands of the Freedom Federation, tens of millions of square kilometers of land. Even after 20 years, the tens of millions of square kilometers of land that had been ravaged by the fluorescent earthworms could not survive. It was still unable to grow any plant-type phase. As a result, the Freedom Federation's 16 islands had been importing large quantities of plant-type phase, foodstuffs, and spirit fruits for the past 20 years. Due to the large population of the 16 islands, in order to ensure the food needs of the islands, the Freedom Federation had no choice but to dispatch dozens of island whales to provide resources for the 16 islands. It was hard to estimate just how much resources the Freedom Federation had lost because of the fluorescent earthworm sorrow incident. The death of the fluorescent earthworm was a vicious incident caused by an insect-type carcinoma Fae. It was caused by a source-type item called the cocoon demon embryo. The source-type cocoon demon embryo could break the shackles of the insect-type carcinoma Fae and allow them to break through the limit of Diamond X/Legend. It was enough to prove the preciousness of the source-type cocoon demon embryo. In fact, the drawback of the entire process was not due to the cocooning of the demon embryo. Instead, it had appeared on the insect-type carcinoma Fae. The insect-type carcinoma Fae's intelligence was chaotic, even if it was at Diamond X/Legend. Most of the insect species carcinoma Faes could only rely on their instincts. During the process of transforming the insect-type carcinoma Faes into demonic spirits, it was unable to increase the intelligence of these insect-type carcinoma Faes. As a result, these spiritless insect species Faes could not be controlled by humans. A single gold carcinoma Fae was enough to cause panic. Even if Her Majesty made a move, she would only be able to stop the damage. But when the carcinoma Fae broke through its genetic shackles and advanced to suzerain, it would become a suzerain Fae. Even a harmless insect species carcinoma Fae was enough to cause a natural disaster. If a calamity-grade cancer Fae wreaked havoc, it might destroy a continent's ecological balance. The Freedom Federation had sent out a total of 7 majesties to deal with the glowing earthworm's sorrow. Afterward, even if a Class 5 creation master presided over the 16 islands, he still wasn't able to restore the 16 islands' soil to its original state after spending 20 years. As an Azure envoy, he had no choice but to deal with something that could threaten the safety of the Azure Federation. Yinlin couldn't allow anyone to bring it back to the Azure Federation. The Azure Federation had once produced a source-type item that could transform any Fae into a demonic spirit-type source-type life form. It was the Fairy's Heart. Those fairies' hearts had been sold for almost as much as an uncontracted sacred source life form in the Azure auction house. The fairy's heart and the cocoon demon embryo had similar effects. However, the fairy's heart was controlled by the soul of the fairy's heart. The cocoon demon embryo only strengthened the insect-type carcinoma Fae's soul. Yinlin had never heard of anyone being able to contract or control a carcinoma Fae to fight. Yinlin looked at the 10 young men and women in front of her and said coldly, "The cocoon demon embryo is so tempting. Since you're so moved by the cocoon demon embryo, I'm sure the Freedom Mission has already given it to you. Now all of you hand over the cocoon demon embryo to me. You can't bring it back without permission and endanger the Azure Federation." Yinlin's words caused the woman called Zheng Kuyan's expression to turn a little tense. Zheng Kuyan spoke up. "Lady Yinlin, I have a 4-winged demon. It is an insect species carcinoma Fae modified from a cocoon demon embryo, and it only has 2 wings at most. I can let my contracted 4-winged demon use its bloodline power to control the insect-type carcinoma Fae." Zheng Kuyan's words caused the expressions of the other 9 youths to change. Just now, Lord Yinlin had given an order, but Zheng Kuyan had questioned it. This was undoubtedly an affront to Lady Yinlin. Offending the Azure envoy was a serious crime. If Lord Yinlin wanted to pursue the matter, he could do so after returning to the Azure Federation. Zheng Kuyan would be directly banished to the Sea Labyrinth. Just when everyone thought that Yinlin would use Zheng Kuyan to establish her dominance, everyone saw Yinlin raise her hand. He summoned a fairy with long, dark blue hair. 3 pairs of wings were flapping on the back of this fairy with long, dark blue hair. Yinlin said faintly, "My 6-winged demon's bloodline can suppress your 4-winged demon's bloodline and turn it into an insect-type carcinoma Fae. If I can have a 6-winged fairy, others can too. Do you think it's safe to let you use the cocoon to transform into a demon embryo to modify an insect-type carcinoma Fae?" Yinlin's words startled Zheng Kuyan. Immediately, Zheng Kuyan's face turned red, and she felt apprehensive. Zheng Kuyan had indeed not thought so much before. Now it seemed that her previous thoughts were indeed not safe. Furthermore, she seemed to have accidentally offended Yinlin. What should she do? From the start, Zheng Kuyan had not been convinced by Yinlin. Zheng Kuyan was born in a 4-star family in the Azure Federation, and had possessed a 4-star beast pattern since she was young. She was a proud daughter of heaven who had been pampered since she was young. Zheng Kuyan understood that it was impossible for her to become an Azure envoy, so she had set her sights on the Azure Knights. But who would have thought that Lin would become the fourth Azure envoy out of nowhere without a word? Could it be because Lin was a genius with two beast patterns? Zheng Kulian, who was also a genius, felt unfair for the first time. When she had first boarded the floating island whale, Zheng Kulian had specially checked on Lin. She had discovered that Lin had been a C-rank spirit chi professional. Even if she had just become a B-rank spirit chi professional, she was still not presentable. Even in the entire Azure 100 sequence, there was not a single C-rank spirit chi professional. In fact, the top few might break through to A rank at any time. Chapter 1473. Lin had casually summoned the six-winged demon. This was the first time Lin had shown her edge. It also made Zheng Kulian realize the gap between them. A diamond six-winged demon was enough to prove too many things. Zheng Kulian was clear that with just this diamond six-winged demon, Lin could press herself against the ground. Zheng Kulian stared at Lin and apologized sincerely. Madam Lin, I don't want to keep the cocoon demon embryos for myself. I'll give them to you now. After speaking, Zheng Kulian took out the cocoon demon embryos from her storage equipment and handed them to Lin with both hands. Zheng Kulian's actions reminded the others. The others all took out the cocoon demon embryos and handed them to Lin. There were no more, no less. There were no less than 10 cocoon demon embryos in their hands. At this moment, Lan Sun, who had been sitting in the main seat without saying a word, stood up and also took out 2 cocoon demon embryos and handed them over. Madam Azure Envoy, the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission also gave me 2 cocoon demon embryos. I'll give them to Madam as well. Lan Sun's words shocked everyone present. As the Azure Sacred Hall's hallmaster, Lan Sun's status wasn't lower than the Azure envoys. There was no need to call Lin Madam. Lan Sun doing this was clearly to establish Lin's prestige. Lan Sun stood up from the main seat and walked to Lin's side. He smiled and pointed to the main seat. Madam Azure Envoy, please take a seat. After speaking, Lan Sun pulled over a chair. He directly sat on the first seat to the right of the main seat. Seeing this, Lin recalled the conversation Lan Sun had with her the night before. Lin didn't bother with pleasantries and directly walked to the main seat. Lin, who had put away the 12 cocoon demon embryos, sat on the main seat and said, "Everyone please sit. Everyone take a seat. On the way here, I learned about the situation from Jiang Song. Let me talk about my attitude towards the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission and the Radiance Federation." While speaking, Lin waved her hand again. As Lin waved her hand, nothing happened in this small room. But in the sea outside, the water currents rose and covered the surface of the island whale that the Azure Federation's diplomatic mission was riding with a light blue water film. This light blue water film seemed to be able to shield everything. As a result, the aura, sound, and scenery within were all isolated from the outside world. The appearance of this water membrane caused the expressions of the people on the other floating island whale to darken. Lin had used the sacred source life form to create a layer of water barrier, which was equivalent to expressing her attitude towards the Freedom Mission. This barrier kept the Freedom Federation's envoys at bay. Lin looked at everyone in the conference room and said, "This time, the envoys are heading to the Radiance Federation to attend the ceremony to celebrate the Radiance 100 sequence's success. The Radiance Federation and our Azure Federation have always had a good relationship. The trade of the Radiance Blue route for so many years has promoted the common prosperity of the Radiance Federation and the Azure Federation. Since we're all going to attend the ceremony, we shouldn't cause trouble for no reason. Do you all understand what I mean?" Lin's tone didn't sound like she was discussing, but more like she was telling everyone her decision. Since it was a decision, there was no room for discussion. The 10 Azure 100 sequence members in the room responded to Lin's decision. Lin nodded to Lan Sun, who was next to her, and walked out of the conference room. Now, Lin's mind was filled with thoughts about whether the Celestial Body Conference would be held as usual tomorrow. She didn't have the mood to work on other things. Seeing Lin leave, Lan Sun's face revealed a worried expression. 5 days ago, Lan Sun had sensed that something was wrong with Lin. Since then, Yinlin had been absent-minded. Over the past 2 days, Yinlin's emotions had become increasingly obvious. Lan Sun had tried to find out about Yinlin's situation, but Yinlin hadn't said anything. Lan Sun was very afraid that something had happened to Yinlin. Others might not know, but Lan Sun knew how precious Yinlin's talent was. Among the 12 azure families, only the azure cloud leopard family had 3 terms, which meant that there hadn't been a child who had awakened the azure cloud leopard's beast pattern in 15 years. In the previous azure envoys, the other 11 azure families had frantically fought for the 4 spots. However, as long as the azure cloud leopard family had a child who had awakened the beast pattern, they would definitely be selected and become azure envoys. This was because the azure cloud leopard's ability, Cloud Chain, was an extremely perfect scouting and communication ability. This scouting and communication ability was an indispensable ability in the 10,000 States Conference. Yinlin had been able to become an azure envoy out of nowhere, because of the azure cloud leopard's beast pattern. Yinlin's spiritual speech White Lion's beast pattern could allow Yinlin to use the spiritual speech White Lion to predict misfortune. Prediction was an ability that was even more advanced than scouting. Yinlin's sacred source lifeform's ability was shielding, which increased Yinlin's anti-scouting ability. Although Yinlin's combat ability might not be very outstanding, with her overall qualities. When the current generation's 5th Azure Envoy was confirmed, Yinlin might take another step forward. From the current 4th Azure Envoy to the 3rd Azure Envoy. In addition, that old fellow from the Azure Cloud Leopard family was very willing to give his granddaughter, Yinlin. He even let Yinlin eat the precious spirit-containing strange ginseng. Even if Yinlin did not do anything, her body could automatically gather the free spirit chi in the air. She could increase the rank of a spirit chi professional at twice the speed of a normal person. In less than half a year, Yinlin would probably be able to become an A-rank spirit chi professional from the new B rank. Lan Sun did not approve of reaching a short-term cooperation agreement with the Freedom Federation's envoys. Lan Sun had left them alone because he wanted to use this opportunity to investigate the character of these 10 newly selected members of the Azure 100 sequence. Although Lan Sun was not satisfied with Zheng Kuiyan's performance. Fortunately, Zheng Kuiyan had repented in time and did not make any mistakes. The Azure Federation's envoys meeting had just ended, but the Freedom Federation's meeting had just begun. A tall and skinny youth with shrewd eyes was constantly tapping the table with his fingers, emitting a dududa sound. He was obviously thinking about something. 3 old men sat beside the youth. Among the 10 obviously younger youths, 7 of them were looking at the tall and skinny youth, who was tapping the table with his fingers. The other 3 youths, 2 men and 1 woman, had very calm expressions. It was as though they were not nervous at all. While the tall and skinny young man was pondering, the woman among them said directly, "Big Brother Qian, these people from the Azure Federation really don't know what's good for them. But I feel that it's fine if the Azure Federation people don't cooperate with us. Our purpose of going to the Radiance Federation this time is to find out the specific situation of the Radiance Moon Empress and see the extent of her injuries. The second is to humiliate the Radiance Federation. No matter which of these 2 things, we can do it. There's no need for us to form an alliance with the Azure Federation's diplomatic corps." Chapter 1474. Speaking of which, the woman's tone changed, and she spoke with a sinister tone. "In my opinion, those 12 cocoon demon embryos might as well be used to enhance the 12 insect-type carcinoma phase. When we leave the Radiance sect, it will be more useful to throw these suzerain-class carcinoma phase onto the Radiance sect's land." Before the man in front of the woman could say anything, an old man in front of the man reprimanded. "Yanling, are you trying to trigger a war between us and the Radiance land? Yanling, are you trying to trigger a war between us and the Radiance land? You are favored by the 3 majesties. At such a time, you should consider the benefits of the majesties who value you." The woman named Yanling pouted and rolled her eyes. She didn't say anything else. The 2 men beside the woman asked, one on the left and one on the right, "Big Brother Qian, during this trip to the Radiance land, Yanling, brother you, and I will be able to crush everyone in the Radiance 100 sequence. We have seen the information of the Radiance 100 sequence members. There is nothing special about them, even if most of the Radiance 100 sequence members are hiding their strength. Based on the trump cards that they have revealed, there isn't much worth paying special attention to. The words of the two youths were extremely arrogant, but the remaining 7 independent 100 sequence members lowered their heads as much as possible. They lowered their heads to weaken their presence. This was because Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian weren't just the new independent 100 sequence members. At the same time, they were favored and appointed by the Majesties to be the next Freedom Envoy. The conversation between the 3 new Freedom Envoys and the previous Freedom Envoys had been interrupted. The 7 independent 100 sequence members didn't even have the qualifications or opportunity to speak. Upon hearing the two youths' words, the tall and thin man, who was tapping the table, couldn't help but frown. Looking at the 3 arrogant people in front of him, the tall and thin man reminded them. The next Radiance Envoy candidates are the Bamboo Monarch's disciple, the Chef Supreme's disciple, and the Lamp Lord's disciple. These 3 people are already over 20 years old. It's impossible for them to participate in the Radiance 100 sequence selection at this time. The disciples of the 3 Majesties of the Radiance Land didn't walk the path of the Radiance 100 sequence in the early years, and have been training outside. But according to the information we obtained, both the Moon Empress and Night Empress have accepted disciples. The disciples of these 2 people are rather mysterious. The information from the Radiance Sect's internal department did not clearly identify their identities. My premonition tells me that these 2 people are likely to be Radiance 100 sequence members. This time, it is very likely that you will be facing the next Radiance Envoy, so don't underestimate your enemies, especially you Yanling. Your sacred source life form is indeed powerful, but don't rely too much on it during battle. Perhaps your sacred source life form will be targeted by someone else's sacred source life form. Don't blame me for not reminding you when the car overturns. When Yanling heard Qianyu calling her, she couldn't help but stick out her tongue. However, Yanling didn't take Qianyu's instructions seriously at all. So what if there was a next Radiance Envoy? His, Kaihua's, and Yu Changjian's phase formed a system, and the sacred source life forms could work together perfectly. Among the new Freedom Envoys, Kaihua and Yu Changjian were the iron triangle that supported the offensive direction. As for the other 2, one was a functional spirit chi professional, and the other was a creation master. The 2 of them were just supporting roles. Yanling didn't think that there was anyone in this world who was her age. There was someone who could defeat her, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian together. Not only did Yanling not understand, but Kaihua and Yu Changjian also didn't understand Qianyu's words. Big brother Qianyu had always been arrogant. Why was he so cautious now? A grand event like the Myriad States Convention was attended by the previous 5 Federation envoys, and the current 5 Federation envoys. In a sense, the current 5 Federation envoys were all candidates for the previous 5 Federation envoys. In some special battles, or if the previous Federation envoys had any accidents, they would be able to replace them in time. If there were no accidents, a Federation envoy could participate in 2 Myriad States conventions. The second Myriad States convention would be their home ground. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian hadn't participated in the Myriad States conventions yet. After all, the 3 of them were rather reliant on Qianyu. Qianyu sighed inwardly when he saw the indifferent expressions on the trio's faces. 8 years ago he also had the same mentality as the 3 of them. However, when he participated in the Myriad States conventions and faced the Radiance envoys head-on, he didn't have the same mentality. Only then did Qianyu understand what kind of existence the Radiance envoys were. Qianyu was very afraid that Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian would suffer because they looked down on him. At that time, it was a small matter if the Radiance Federation didn't lose face, but it wouldn't be good if it affected the other purposes of going to the Radiance Federation. Qianyu glanced at the 3 elders sitting below him and nodded to one of them. After the elder understood Qianyu's meaning, he said to Yanling and the other 2, "Your sacred source life forms are very important. It's best not to expose your sacred source life forms during this trip to the Radiance Federation." Upon hearing the elder's words, Yanling and the other 2 did not object. The three of them understood that the Elder wanted them to reveal the sacred source lifeform's abilities during the Myriad States conventions. This would make the Radiance Federation envoys have no time to prepare. It would catch them off guard. Kaihua suddenly thought of something and said, "If there really is a disciple of His Holiness among the newly promoted Radiance 100 sequence members, why don't we go all out during the spar? It's common for accidents to happen during a spar. Even if someone really dies during a spar, the Radiance sect can't say anything." Yan Ling and Yu Changjian were moved by Kaihua's words. Qian Yu also said after thinking for a while, "If you are confident in killing it, you can consider using the sacred source lifeform's ability. But since it was an accident, don't be too obvious when you do it." Speaking up to this point, Qian Yu stood up and sighed before continuing. "Forget it. The Azure Federation's envoys are not willing to cooperate with us for a short period of time. We also have other allies in the Radiance Federation. I want to see how the Radiance Federation will compete with the Freedom Federation in the 10,000 States Convention 2 years later after the chaos." At this point, Qian Yu's face revealed a meaningful smile. He was like a cunning hunter who had laid a trap long ago. And now this hunter saw his prey stepping into his trap. There was a cool breeze, and the sea breeze fluttered Yin Lin's clothes. Yin Lin's hands and feet were cold as she looked at the increasingly obvious stars in the sky. Yin Lin could not help but be intoxicated. Yin Lin was no longer a blind girl who could not see. Yin Lin had awakened 2 beast patterns, and was the Azure Federation's 4th Azure envoy. Chapter 1475. Speaking of which, the gathering among the stars was not considered helpful to Yin Lin now. Instead, it was a little cumbersome. However, there were already fetters that Yin Lin could not cut off in the stars. Yin Lin did not dare to think about what would happen if the Celestial Council did not proceed as usual. Would she never be able to see him again? Just as Yin Lin was looking up at the stars, in the Rock Continent's underground world, a seriously injured youth was commanding a bat species Fae. He split out a bat group to attack a group of Class 3 underground dimensional lifeforms. As the bat group surrounded these Class 3 underground dimensional lifeforms, the youth's injuries were recovering at a visible rate. There were more than 10 figures behind this youth, controlling different source-type lifeforms to fight against the underground dimensional lifeforms. This was a small team that Beisu had formed within 2 weeks. It could be considered the embryonic form of Beisu's faction. During these 6 days, Beisu did not dare to let himself stop at all. He had to fight until he was exhausted every time. This was the only way Beisu could not let his imagination run wild. Tomorrow was the day of the next appointment, and Beisu had been looking forward to it. Trey had been rather stable for the past few days as he had been on the road. He encountered 2 groups of bandits, but they were dealt with by the Hammer Kingdom's court warriors who were sent to his side. Although it was still a long way from the Divine Wood Federation's border, Trey was already looking forward to meeting the master he had identified. Zoiran had already met up with Lin Yuan in reality. The Celestial Council no longer had any meaning to Zoiran. Zoiran no longer intended to participate in the next Celestial Council. Zoiran did not intend to participate in the next Celestial Council. In any case, she could get in touch with Lin Yuan at any time. Yin Lin had already started to select the 14 millet fruits, and had already selected 7 suitable women. It would not be long before the 14 millet fruits would be formed. At night, the radiant royal capital's lights were lit, and it was bustling. Topics related to the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess on StarWeb had washed the major forums and posts tonight. Even those StarWeb netizens who did not listen to music usually understood the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess and the Warm Sun Foundation. Just as the public opinion about the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess was at its peak, a piece of news was announced at midnight. It was announced on StarWeb on time. The StarWeb officials sent a message to every StarWeb user. This news left all the StarWeb netizens and faction members dumbfounded. Then he was filled with anticipation and excitement. It was the news of the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift officially opening for all Radiance Federation citizens. During the Nyx Assembly, the High Holiness had discussed that Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rifts would only be open to faction members. But later, His Holiness Cicada Cry proposed the idea of letting 32 major cities build mirror cities in the Abyss world. With the established mirror city, the danger in the Abyss could be effectively isolated through the city itself. This allowed any Radiant citizen to operate safely in the Abyss world. Thus, there was the current announcement to the world. Regardless of whether it was a rising force, a veteran force, or a peak force, none of them had received the news in advance. It could be said that this piece of news was equal to everyone. The members of the forces who received the news immediately mobilized their men. He began to plan his development in the Abyss. It was precisely this piece of news that caused the expressions of Di Wanqing and Di Wantian, who were overseeing the whale ocean trade, to change. The Radiance Association would publicize the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift during the Great Night Assembly. Di Wanqing and Di Wantian heard the news. It was just that the two of them did not expect the Highnesses to act so quickly and not leak any information in advance. If it had been during normal times, Di Wanqing and Di Wantian would have wished for the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift to open earlier. At the juncture of the Radiance 100 sequence selection, no one would focus on the whale ocean trade anymore. However, the bad thing was that the whale ocean trade had attracted so many low-class creation masters at this juncture. The 32 major cities were building cities in the Abyss world. Factions of all sizes were building towns in the Abyss world. And this was the time when creation masters' resources were needed the most. If the whale ocean trade were to recruit creation masters in large quantities at this time, it would be too conspicuous. It was very easy for others to discover that something was amiss and reveal clues. Di Wantian immediately said to Di Wanqing, "Wanqing, go and inform Third Sister about the situation. 3 days later, when that batch of creation masters arrives, ask Third Sister to get rid of all of them, so that she can become a Class 5 creation master in one go." Di Wantian knew very well whether his Third Sister had become a Class 5 creation master or not. She had completely different speaking rights. What Di Wantian wanted to do was to increase the speaking rights of the whale ocean trade to the maximum. It was so big that she could negotiate with the High Holiness. Lin Yuan woke up at daybreak in the Return from Faraway Manor. After consuming the geocentric jade milk, it was already very difficult for him to develop the habit of sleeping in. After waking up, he immediately learned about the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift's public announcement. He immediately entered the Spirit Lock spatial zone and worked hard. He was prepared to quickly prepare the phase that he had promised to Raging Wave City, Indigo Azure City, and Ascending Dragon City. He would then use Sky City's reputation among the 3 major cities to attract more attention from the other major cities. He would then use this opportunity to negotiate more cooperation with the major cities. This would allow Lin Yuan to obtain more rations for the princess. After working hard until noon, Lin Yuan went downstairs for lunch. After lunch, he prepared to discuss the Sacred Source Lifeform Celestial Body Council with Wenyu. This time, when Wenyu went into seclusion in the Radiant Moon Palace, the source paper was not the biggest improvement in her strength. It was the Sacred Source Lifeform Celestial Body Council. Now Wenyu's Celestial Body Council had risen to 3-star, the same grade as Lin Yuan's Sacred Source Lifeform, the Princess. If Wenyu's Celestial Body Council wanted to increase its grade, it needed spiritual-type spiritual ingredients. Mystic Moon's original body was a spiritual-type dragon species Fae. As Wenyu's teacher, Mystic Moon always felt that she had treated Wenyu unfairly. Mystic Moon was so focused on nurturing Wenyu, because she hoped that Wenyu could follow by the Moon Empress side like she did. She could also follow by Lin Yuan's side and assist him. Thus, Mystic Moon gave the dragon horn that she had shed after taking that step to Wenyu. He let Wenyu's Sacred Source Lifeform, the Heavenly Body Assembly, absorb the dragon horn. Although Wenyu's Celestial Body Council was only at 3-star, for a short period of time, under the effect of the dragon horn, the Celestial Body Council would quickly rise to 5-star. It might even reach 5-star and above. As the Celestial Body Council's grade increased, Wenyu's understanding of the Celestial Body Council also became stronger. Wenyu was prepared to chat with Lin Yuan about the Celestial Body Council's situation. She wanted Lin Yuan to help her decide the Celestial Body Council's development direction. Chapter 1476. However, before talking to Lin Yuan about the sacred source life form and the celestial body council, when you had other things to ask him, when you had only learned about the opening of the Class 6 Abyss Rift this morning. In her opinion, the Abyss world was an unknown world that had yet to be explored by humans. There were extremely rich resources in the Abyss world that could be mined. When you wanted to ask if Lin Yuan had any plans to develop in the Abyss world. Thus she said, "Young Master, the Abyss world has opened." Young Master, the Abyss world has opened. According to the rules, our Sky City will be located in the capital. Are we going to build a faction in the Abyss world's mirror image royal capital? Upon hearing her words, Lin Yuan was slightly startled. He immediately recalled that he, Lu Jie, Zhongzhe Long Tao, and the others had not told Wen Yu about building a faction in the Abyss world. Thus, Lin Yuan explained the situation to Wen Yu in detail. Wen Yu nodded when she heard that Lin Yuan already had a plan for the Abyss world. At that moment, Wen Yu heard Lin Yuan continue. "Wen Yu, I told you about the Swamp World situation last time, but you have never been to the Swamp World to take a look. Since I have time now, I'll take you to the Swamp World to take a look." Lin Yuan took out the treasure cave golden toad skin and stomach pouch. He released the dragon horn mystic tortoise and handed it over to the mother of Bloodbath. Lin Yuan let Wen Yu enter the treasure cave golden toad. Then Lin Yuan returned to the spirit lock spatial zone with the treasure cave golden toad. He entered the swamp world through the Klein hub. After entering the swamp world, Lin Yuan released Wen Yu. After Wen Yu visited the territory in the swamp world, Lin Yuan took her back to the main world. Sitting on the water rhinoceros leather sofa again, Wen Yu learned that Lin Yuan had already spread his business to the swamp world. Compared to the Abyss world, the swamp world was undoubtedly more suitable for human development. Because the Abyss world was hot all year round, there was no rain, and the ground was solid rock. It was not suitable for planting any plant species phase, and it was difficult to raise long-haired beast species phase. Under the high temperature of the Abyss world, even if the long-haired beast species phase had sufficient water supply, they would still be easily suffocated by their long hair. With Long Tao managing the faction and many people investing in it, Lin Yuan's distribution of resources would be much less than when he established his own faction. However, he could truly be a hands-off shopkeeper and not have to worry about anything. At the same time, there was no need to invest any manpower. Since everything in the Abyss world had been arranged properly, the Abyss world was not a place to be. When you did not need to make any more plans. At this time, Wen Yu recalled the message that Duan he had sent 2 days ago. With a wave of Wen Yu's hand, the paper fluttered in the air. Ink continued to form on the flying pieces of paper. A stack of new documents fell on the table. Wen Yu took the stack of information and handed it to Lin Yuan. "Young Master, Indigo Azure City wishes to deepen our cooperation with you and order more bronze/epic phase. Also, the scope of cooperation is not limited to Indigo Azure City's standard Fey, the hot spring slug." At that time, Young Master hadn't returned yet. After learning about this matter, I called the Stormy Wave Guard captain in advance. I found out that Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City, these two big cities that are close to Indigo Azure City, have plans to cooperate with us. I mailed a piece of faceless paper to Duan He and prepared to let him use it to change his appearance before contacting Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City. Find out the conditions given by Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City. Of course, whether to cooperate with Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City is entirely up to Young Master. Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City are so eager for Creation Master resources, because they must have heard the news of the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift opening in advance. Law Source crystals are not rare items for these big cities. During the active period of the Dimensional Rift every 10 years, these big cities have collected countless Law Source crystals. Young Master can raise the price. This will be good for both Young Master and Indigo Azure City. Upon hearing Wen Yu's words, Lin Yuan frowned slightly. However, Lin Yuan soon understood the meaning of Wen Yu's words. After all, the news of Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City had been obtained from Indigo Azure City. If he increased the price for Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City, the price for Indigo Azure City would remain the same. It was tantamount to invisibly categorizing Indigo Azure City as one of their factions. This would allow Indigo Azure City's city guard captain to have an endless favorable impression of Sky City. This favorable impression could even jump out of the transaction itself. When Yu's method was a pull of human relations. Between pulling and pulling, it could make a relationship more solid. The news from Raging Wave City had also been spread by Indigo Azure Guard Captain Feng Dong. Feng Dong could let the other 3 big cities' city guard captains know about this kind of cooperation that concerned the prosperity of his own city. It was enough to see that Feng Dong was a generous person. In other words, Feng Dong himself was a big mouth. If Sky City maintained the original price for Indigo Azure City and raised the price for Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City, Feng Dong would feel very proud. Perhaps very soon, Feng Dong's big mouth could let more of the big city's city guard captains know the benefits of cooperating with Sky City. Recently, Duan He had been bringing the white-clothed followers to train outside. It was better to let Duan He and the other white-clothed followers bring along the faceless paper to cooperate with the major cities. Lin Yuan sighed. He would have to go into seclusion for this month. However, working hard in seclusion was the only way for him to increase his rank as a spirit chi professional. Although continuously enhancing bronze/epic phase wouldn't give as much spirit chi as upgrading bronze/epic phase to silver or gold, the spirit chi one could obtain was far less than upgrading bronze phase to silver or gold. However, this would undoubtedly allow him to obtain greater economic benefits. After all, the entire faction still had to rely on Lin Yuan to support it. However, many a little makes an ocean. Before the Radiance Envoy selection, it would be enough if he could easily become an A-rank spirit chi professional. Lin Yuan said to Wen Yu. After this, I will contact the city guard captains of Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City. At this point, Lin Yuan's mind moved. Wen Yu, get the source paper to form a faceless paper for me. Wen Yu felt a little strange when she heard Lin Yuan's words, and did not understand why he wanted the faceless paper. However, since he had made a request, she naturally would not refuse. Soon, a pale yellow tissue appeared in her hand. Wen Yu handed the pale yellow tissue to Lin Yuan and said, "Don't worry," she said. "Young master, you just have to put this faceless paper on your face. The faceless paper will change the proportions of your facial features. It can change about 80% of the original foundation. After the changes, it will be impossible to recognize a person based on their appearance." Chapter 1477. In addition to the faceless paper changing its appearance on its own, I can also manipulate it and change it into a specific appearance. However, after wearing the faceless paper, there's no way to remove the disguise state. If you want to remove the disguise state, you need to use the source paper to take back this faceless paper. Otherwise, even if you scratch your face, the faceless paper will still not be damaged. Upon hearing Wen Yu's explanation, Lin Yuan chose the former without hesitation. Lin Yuan planned to use the faceless paper to change his facial features at will, and make them more ordinary. He did this so that he could go to the Whale Ocean Trade's lair, and find out what was going on through the registration. Lin Yuan placed this pale yellow tissue on his face. Lin Yuan felt something gently brushing against his face. His face was slightly itchy, but soon this itch disappeared. There was no mirror on the first floor of the Return from Faraway Manor's main residence. However, the sweet white porcelain vase with fresh flowers on the table could reflect his image very well. Through the sweet white porcelain vase, Lin Yuan found that his facial features had indeed been changed by the faceless paper to be extremely ordinary. It was the kind of existence that would not be noticed in a crowd. Lin Yuan was very satisfied with this. However, he did not know that Wen Yu's thoughts were completely different from his. After Lin Yuan used the faceless paper, Wen Yu had indeed felt that his facial features had become ordinary at first glance. However, at second glance, she found that it was not the case at all. Lin Yuan's facial features had been exquisite and handsome before. Such handsome and exquisite facial features would, to a large extent, weaken the beauty that Lin Yuan had. It would weaken Lin Yuan's temperament and bone features, giving people a sense of beauty. However, now that Lin Yuan's appearance had become ordinary, The beauty of his temperament and bone features could not be suppressed no matter what. If such a Lin Yuan was placed in a crowd, people would not feel anything at first glance. However, as long as that person took a second glance, he would immediately become the focus of the crowd. However, this did not affect Lin Yuan's purpose of using the faceless paper to cover up his appearance. Wen Yu was not obsessed with looks. At present, Lin Yuan had an ordinary appearance and a prominent temperament and bone features. In her eyes, Lin Yuan was more charming than the previous Lin Yuan. Sitting beside Lin Yuan, Wen Yu's heart could not help but beat faster. Wen Yu hurriedly said softly, "Young master, if you don't want to continue using the faceless paper, I can help you take it off. After taking it off, the faceless paper will not be damaged. Young master, you can still wear it on your face in the future, and your facial features will be the same as last time. However, if you change to another piece of paper, your facial features might not be the same as before, and they will continue to change." He reached out to touch his face, and found that it felt exactly the same as before. It was impossible to tell that he had changed his appearance. The faceless paper's ability to disguise itself could be said to be one of the best. After Wen Yu took it off, Lin Yuan put away the pale yellow paper. He then turned to Wen Yu and asked, "Wen Yu, you said you wanted to discuss your sacred source life form, the celestial body assembly. Did something happen to your sacred source life form, the heavenly body council?" Upon hearing that, Wen Yu immediately activated the celestial council, and a cat's eye stone appeared on her forehead. The cat's eye stone flickered with starlight, making Wen Yu feel as though she was among the stars. Lin Yuan found that Wen Yu's sacred source life form, the celestial council, had been upgraded to star 3. Moreover, there seemed to be an object containing a huge amount of spiritual energy hidden in the celestial council. This object was increasing the celestial council's star class every second. Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to continue investigating the celestial council. He found that the celestial council's star class had changed. Everything else, including the function description, was the same as before. Lin Yuan looked at Wen Yu, not knowing what she wanted to talk to him about. At that moment, Wen Yu said, "Young master, my sacred source life form has been upgraded to star 3. The celestial council has now reached a fork in the road. I can use my spiritual energy to decide the celestial council's 2 directions of development. The first direction is to pull more people into the celestial council to make up for the northern and southern constellation seats. The celestial council is now at a fork in the road. I can use my spiritual energy to decide the celestial council's 2 directions of development. The other way is to deepen the relationship between the celestial council and the northern and southern constellations." Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows and asked, "More specifically, how can I deepen the relationship with the northern and southern constellations contractors?" In Lin Yuan's opinion, pulling a large number of people into the celestial council was not necessarily a good thing. Wen Yu's spiritual energy could only maintain the celestial council once every 7 days. It could only be maintained for half an hour. Under such circumstances, if the celestial council suddenly expanded from the original size of 6 people, including Lin Yuan and Wen Yu, to a dozen people, during that half an hour of the celestial council's meeting, the 6 to 7 minutes that a person could get now would become 1 to 2 minutes. Without saying much, just exchanging pleasantries, a minute or 2 would pass. It was difficult to set aside time for Lin Yuan to solve the problem through the Celestial Council's functional astral throne. Therefore, after hearing Wen Yu mention the Celestial Council's 2 development routes, Lin Yuan was more inclined to the latter. However, Lin Yuan wanted to know how to deepen it. How to deepen it? The Celestial Council was originally a mutually beneficial organization, so sufficient communication time was very necessary. Compared to suddenly adding so many people to the Celestial Council, Lin Yuan was a little more solid. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's question, Wen Yu explained, "If I want to deepen the connection with the contestants of the southern and southern constellation seats, I need to consume a huge amount of spirit power. However, after deepening the connection, not only can we pull the contestants of the northern and southern constellation seats to join the Celestial Council through sleep at a specific time, We can also allow them to communicate with their own celestial bodies and communicate with the Celestial Council. When Lin Yuan heard that, his eyes suddenly lit up. If that was the case, then the Council of Celestial Bodies would be able to contact each other once every 7 days. It became a two-way connection that could be carried out at any time. However, based on his understanding of the Celestial Council's functions and the Star Spirit Throne, the Celestial Assembly was not a big deal. Apart from when used mental power, this connection might require other things as well. Before Lin Yuan could continue to ask, when you had already spoken first. However, this kind of long-distance communication consumes will energy and rule-bending energy. Only under the premise that I pay enough will energy and rule-bending energy can I connect to the contractor of the Star Soul Throne. That would be a great burden. Upon hearing Wen Yu's words, Lin Yuan tilted his head. If it's just willpower and rules, I have plenty of them here. 166 Reading Net. Chapter 1478. If when you wanted to deepen the connection with the contractors through the Heavenly Council, she would need other things. Lin Yuan might not be able to agree so readily. He had the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone, and could quickly gather a lot of wealth. However, the types of resources that the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone could produce were too rare. He had already thrown aside the completely jade-textured wood. Most of these completely jade-textured wood were used in the construction of the Return from Faraway Mansion and the underground space. Lin Yuan would only let the Heavenly Craft Pavilion's spirit craftsmen process the leftover powder after Hu Quan had processed it into luxury items. They would be put in the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce for sale or auction. As for the completely jade-textured wood that could not be used, Lin Yuan stored them. He was going to use them when he built the Sky City on the floating island whale's back. With the whale bones of 3 old island whales as the beam, Lin Yuan did not need to build the structure. However, if he wanted this beam to be gorgeous, he needed to use a lot of materials to fill it. Lin Yuan, who was used to using the completely jade-textured wood utensils, still intended to use the original style of the Return from Faraway Manor in the construction of the Sky City. Therefore, only acquaintances needed the completely jade-textured wood. It would no longer flow from Lin Yuan's hands into the market. The Spirit Lock Spatial Zone's current wealth was all relying on the Golden Lotus Brocade, the Heavenly Maiden-grade Elemental Pearls, and the Bronze/Epic phase that Lin Yuan had enhanced in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Under normal circumstances, precious spiritual materials would not appear in the market at all. For example, the island whale had oil and ambergris whale fragrance in Lin Yuan's hands. Even if Lin Yuan went bankrupt one day, he would not exchange them for supplies. Therefore, he could not guarantee the availability of some rare resources. However, Lin Yuan had too much willpower and law energy. It was difficult to find willpower and law energy with others. However, Lin Yuan's sacred source life form, the Sacred Sword Embracing Queen, could extract willpower and law from the fantasy breed phase bodies and myth breed phase law crystals at will. Lin Yuan had not stopped searching for the fantasy breed phase bodies and myth breed phase law crystals. When Lin Yuan had prepared the phase bodies for Duan He to feed the purple demon, he had extracted the willpower from these phase bodies in advance. Now all kinds of willpower and law energy were mixed in the princess dress. Many minor laws and willpower were of no use to him. He could consume these useless willpower and laws without any heartache. It was equivalent to helping the princess wash her dress. Upon hearing his matter-of-fact words, Wen Yu blinked twice. Wen Yu remembered that when she had first convened the Celestial Council, he had said the same thing after exhausting his willpower and nomological energy. However, if he wanted to communicate with the contestants of the northern and southern constellations through the Celestial Council, he would need a lot of rules and willpower. Wen Yu said, "Young master, even if you don't lack willpower energy and rule-bending energy, it's still not enough. But I'll need a lot of rules and willpower." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan smiled and explained to Wen Yu, "My sacred source life form can extract willpower and laws from the bodies of fantasy breed phase and the law crystals of myth breed phase. Don't worry. If we really need too many, we can exchange for some dead fantasy breed phase corpses when we reach an agreement with those large cities." When I use the Golden Lotus brocade stock to trade with the various peak powers, I'll exchange it for some law crystal fragments. Wen Yu was completely relieved after hearing Lin Yuan's words. Wen Yu knew that Lin Yuan had already formed a contract with a sacred source life form. However, Wen Yu did not know what Lin Yuan's sacred source life form was. Wen Yu had never thought of asking him. Now that Lin Yuan had told him about the sacred source life form's abilities, it meant that Lin Yuan trusted him. Wen Yu's heart felt warm in an instant. The corners of her mouth curled up into a bright smile. After sorting out her emotions, Wen Yu said, "Young master, if I increase the connection between me and the contractors of the constellation seats in the deep south sky, the Celestial Body Council can only accommodate 7 people at the same time, including you and me. However, I can extend the duration of the Celestial Body Assembly from the original 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows. This was not considered a restriction for him. Instead, it was very good news. Compared to 30 minutes, 45 minutes was an increase of 50% on the original basis. It would be easier for him to communicate with the Celestial Council members. On the other hand, 7 people was not a small number. Excluding Lin Yuan and Wen Yu, the Celestial Council could pull in 5 people at the same time. Su Iren had already met up with him at the Divine Wood Federation. Although Su Iren had signed a contract with the Constellation Seats, she did not need to participate in the Celestial Council. Tally would soon meet up with him at the Divine Wood Federation border. At that time, the Celestial Council would have an empty seat. Currently, only Yin Lin, Bei Su, and Tally needed to participate in the next Celestial Council. In other words, when Lin Yuan convened the Celestial Council, he could choose 2 newcomers to join the Celestial Council. Lin Yuan was looking forward to it. It would give the contractors of the Constellation Seats the ability to contact the Celestial Council. Every time the Celestial Council held, there was no need for everyone to participate. This would not delay Wen Yu from increasing the number of contractors of the Constellation Seats, and it could also greatly increase the speed of the Celestial Council's star class increase. The Celestial Council had 2 ways to increase its star class. One was to consume spiritual-type spiritual ingredients. The other was to increase its star class by consuming the Constellation Seat's laws and willpower. To a certain extent, Lin Yuan's sacred source life form, the sacred sword-wielding queen, and Wen Yu's sacred source life form, the Celestial Council, were complementary existences. After finalizing the development direction of the Celestial Council with Lin Yuan, Wen Yu prepared to go to the training room for the ceremony before the Celestial Council. Lin Yuan picked up the phone and called the city guard captains of Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City respectively. Lin Yuan gave a unified statement to the city guard captains of Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City. He would use the price of 6 law source crystals to enhance the standard phase of Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City. He would upgrade the standard phase of Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City to Bronze/Epic. With Indigo Azure City's City Guard Captain Fengdong's guarantee, the City Guard captains of Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City were very forthright. They immediately placed an order for 1,000 standard phase in Sky City. However, Lin Yuan had never met the City Guard captains of Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City. Therefore, the City Guard captains of Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City only paid a deposit and were not as forthright as Wang Su of Raging Wave City. Chapter 1479. The completion of these 2 transactions was equivalent to earning another 12,000 law origin crystals for Lin Yuan. It was enough for the princess to spend a long time. Yuzhong City and Cloud Pool City needed such a large number of high-quality bronze phase, which was enough to prove the determination of these large cities to build mirror cities in the Abyss world. Lin Yuan, who had an understanding of the dimensional world, knew how difficult it was to develop resources in a dimensional world. He did not know how many hard battles he would have to fight with the abyssal demons. The opening of the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift and the establishment of the mirror cities in the Abyss world would subtly increase the Spirit Chi professionals' courage. It would make the Spirit Chi professionals' beliefs and willpower stronger in the process of training in the Abyss world. It could be said that the Abyss world was the Radiance Federation's best place to prepare for war. Of course, the establishment of this place was all due to the Holiness's discovery of the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift. They had swept through the Abyss world day and night. They had driven away and killed all the powerful dimensional life forms in the Abyss world. As for setting such a low price with the Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City's city guard captains, it was mainly because Lin Yuan did not want to use the opening of the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift to raise the price. It gave people a feeling of exclusive greed. Otherwise, at this juncture, when all the factions were recruiting creation masters, Lin Yuan was asking for 10 or even 15 Law's Origin crystals. Even if the Yuzhong City and Cloud Pool City's city guard captains did not agree at first, they would eventually have to pinch their noses and accept it. Lin Yuan increased the price by 1 Law Source crystal on the original basis of 5 Law Source crystals. It was for Indigo Azure City's city guard captain Feng Dong to see. He had already shown his friendliness to Feng Dong. As for how Sky City should treat Feng Dong, it completely depended on how many orders Feng Dong could bring to Sky City. Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City were neighbors of Indigo Azure City. Duan He was currently leading the white-clothed followers to train near Indigo Azure City. After Lin Yuan hung up the phone with the Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City's city guard captains, he called Duan He. Over the phone, Lin Yuan issued a mission to Duan He. He asked Duan He to lead these white-clothed followers and travel between Cloud Pool City, Yuzhong City, Stormy Wave City, and return from Faraway Manor. Duan He, who understood Lin Yuan's mission, immediately told him that he would complete it perfectly. In any case, Lin Yuan had already finished discussing the matter. Duan He would need to spend more effort on the delivery of the phase. Each of the white-clothed followers recruited by Sky City had comprehended at least 3 willpower runes. Due to their origins, most of the prodigies who had been lost in the Radiance continent had very weak main phase. However, with Lin Yuan's pouring of resources and Duan He's meticulous nurturing, Lin Yuan's cultivation had improved tremendously. These white-clothed followers were no longer the same as before. The sharp sword had been hidden in the scabbard for a long time. It was time to reveal its edge. This mission was the best time for the white followers to show off their abilities. I have awakened a willpower rune. I can be your servant. Can you please let my sister go? A teenager was kneeling on the black stone floor. The teenager kept banging his head on the ground, making loud banging sounds. The black stone floor was indeed bright, but the collision of flesh and blood with the ground was like an illusion. In the end, a huge bump appeared on the teenager's head. The bump on the teenager's head continuously hit the ground, and the blood squeezed out a hole on the skin of the forehead, staining the black stone floor. In front of the teenager was a middle-aged woman who was about 40 or 50 years old. The middle-aged woman's eyes did not even glance at the teenager. But when she saw the teenager's blood staining the black stone floor, a trace of disgust immediately appeared on the middle-aged woman's expressionless face. A trace of disgust immediately appeared on the middle-aged woman's expressionless face. It was as if she had seen something dirty. Seeing the middle-aged woman frown, the 2 men behind her hurriedly picked up the young man who was kneeling on the ground and prepared to throw him out. At that moment, the middle-aged woman stood up. Wait. After saying that, the middle-aged woman walked in front of the teenager and said in a disdainful tone, "Kid, you have a good idea. Kid, you sure have a good idea. You have awakened a willpower rune and want to stay in the castle as a servant. Are you trying to freeload one of my fays? It is your sister's fortune that the 6th young master has taken a fancy to her. If your sister stays by the 6th young master's side and serves him well, you might be able to live a better life in the future." After speaking, the middle-aged woman picked up the jade wheel on the table, turned around and walked into the castle. When she left, the middle-aged woman used the jade wheel to gently roll on her face, maintaining her skin. Her expression was full of satisfaction. The teenager was left with his head on the ground. The dizzy teenager gritted his teeth, and his eyes were filled with hot tears. However, he did not dare to let his tears drip on the black stone floor. The 6th young master had taken a fancy to his sister, and his sister had no way of rejecting him. Because of this, the teenager told his sister the secret that his sister did not allow him to say. The two men beside the teenager had all kinds of tattoos on their bodies. One of the men had a totem tattoo on half of his face. It made the man look very fierce. Seeing that the teenager was about to cry, the man said playfully, "Kid, the master of our castle does not like to see people cry the most. Anyone who dares to cry in the castle will not have a good ending. If your tears fall, I won't have to throw you out." When the man said that, his face showed a ruthless expression. It was as if the teenager was going to kill the moment his tears fell. That was indeed the case. The other man said in an unfriendly tone, "Fourth brother, why are you wasting time with this kid? Throw him out so that we can go back and report. This kid's sister is with the sixth young master. We might have to go back. Send this kid's sister back." When the man said this, he purposely emphasized his voice. It was as if he wanted to purposely provoke the teenager he was holding up. Sure enough, as soon as the man's voice fell, the man felt the muscles of the teenager he was holding up tensed up. This was a man's bad taste. Men love to feel helpless and hopeless lives, fear, worry, and powerlessness. The teenager's fingernails had already pierced into his palm. However, compared to the pain in his hand and forehead, the teenager's heart hurt more. The teenager's parents passed away early, and he and his sister depended on each other since he was young. The teenager knew how good his sister was to him. It was not that the teenager did not think that his sister would marry someone in the future. Although the teenager was a little helpless against this, he did not dislike it. However, the sixth young master in this castle was basically a sick devil. His sister would fall into the hands of the sixth young master in less than 3 days. It was not the sixth young master who killed his sister. It was his sister who could not bear the humiliation and ended her life. Chapter 1480. Based on the youth's understanding of his sister. Compared to the former, the youth felt that the latter was more likely. At the thought of this, a feeling of despair filled the youth's heart. At this moment, the youth wished that he had enough strength to rush into the castle and take his sister away. He wanted to kill all the bad guys that obstructed him, including the sixth young master. All of a sudden, the youth felt a wave of dizziness. The incessant banging of his head on the ground had given the youth a concussion. Slowly, the youth's consciousness weakened. When the two tattooed men saw that the youth had fainted, they couldn't help but feel bored. When they walked out of the castle, they threw the youth at the castle's entrance as though he was a piece of trash. The youth's shabby and sorry state seemed out of place when compared to this imposing castle. After an unknown period of time, the youth felt a chill around his body and woke up. When the youth opened his eyes, it affected the wound on his forehead. The youth couldn't help but gasp in pain. The cool air poured into his throat and pulled the youth's thoughts back to reality. After looking in the direction of the Blackstone Castle, the youth staggered back home. He might not be able to see anyone in the vicinity of the Blackstone Castle, but in the dark, there were guards on duty. His sister must already know that he had come to the Blackstone Castle. If he lingered here and didn't leave, he might be killed by the guards. He couldn't do anything for his sister, and he didn't want his sister to be sad because of his death. At this moment, the youth wished for a miracle to happen. The first tattoo on his body was from his mother, and the second was from his father. After his parents died, his sister helped him tattoo them on his body. Back then, the youth still remembered that he had begged his sister to tattoo them on his parents. This way, the family could be reunited again. The youth clenched his fists tightly, and fresh blood dripped onto the ground from time to time. After walking out of the Blackstone Castle and arriving at the alley, the youth smashed his fist on the wall fiercely. In the Blackstone Castle, there was a Mother Earth, which was considered a mid-class noble in the entire Mother Goddess Federation. Above Mother Earth was Heavenly Mother. Mother Earth was usually held by Class 1 to Class 3 Creation Masters, and experts below Emperor Class. Heavenly Mother was held by Class 4 Creation Masters, and experts above Emperor Class. There was only one Mother Goddess in the entire Mother Goddess Federation. He was the only Class 5 Creation Master in the Mother Goddess Federation. The Mother Goddess Federation did not have the concept of Her Majesty. Overlord ranked and above experts were collectively known as the Mother Goddess Guards. They protected the only Mother Goddess in the Mother Goddess Federation. The entire system of nobility was intricately linked. Mother Earth worked for Heavenly Mother, and Mother Earth could receive rewards from Heavenly Mother. The Heavenly Mother also worshipped the Mother Goddess. The entire pyramid of nobility was so dense that the youth could not even muster the will to resist. If a heavenly god descended, he would really be able to defeat old Mother Earth in Blackstone Castle. The guards that the Heavenly Mother left behind in the Blackstone Castle would definitely kill him. Even if he was lucky enough to defeat the Heavenly Mother's guards, the Divine Mother and the Divine Mother's guards would immediately chase after him. The only way to change one's fate was to become a creation master, becoming the Mother Earth recognized by the Mother Goddess Federation. However, he was too young and couldn't afford to let the creation master appraise him and see if he had the talent of a creation master. Even so, when the young man thought of his sister, he still felt a surge of courage. If he could save his sister, he was willing to give up everything in exchange. When the young man returned home, he had lost too much blood and was overly nervous and exhausted. He immediately fainted. When he fainted, Bupo's tightly clenched fists didn't loosen. Fresh blood seeped out from the gaps of his fingers and soaked the blanket, making it red with determination. A slightly old but abnormally massive ship was sailing in the wind and waves. The wood used on the giant ship had been soaked in seawater and corroded by the wind and rain. Not only did it not decay, but it was also in a stone-like state. The wooden body of the ship was embedded with steel cables of different lengths and thicknesses. On the outside of the steel cables, there was a layer of metallic spiritual materials. At the front and back of the ship, there were two giant ship lamps. Originally, there were two high-grade strange flames in the ship lamps. The high-grade strange flame, sunlight illumination flame, had a powerful illumination ability. In terms of illumination ability, even some top-notch strange flames were inferior. However, at this moment, the sunlight illumination flame in the ship lamps at the front and back had been specially taken out by someone. It was dusk, and the sea surface was gloomy as the wind and waves gradually weakened. However, under this gloomy sea surface, there were hundreds of black shadows that were at least 5 meters in size following the ship closely. Occasionally, the black shadows would come close to the surface, their black fins covered in sharp barbs. If these black shadows sped up, the fins on their backs could easily split through palm-thick ordinary wooden boards. Sounds of collisions continuously came from the bottom of the ship. It was clear that these black shadows were tirelessly hitting the bottom of the ship with their fins. Fortunately, the wood used to build the bottom of the ship had already turned to stone, and large amounts of metallic spiritual materials had been added as the connection points, making it unusually sturdy. But even so, the bottom of the ship was not covered in metallic spiritual materials. There were still many fine scratches. On the deck, the sailors sat down on the ground. Only a few were adjusting the sails, and the sailors on the watchtower were still exerting their strength. These sailors' lips were cracked, and their skin was rough and dry. Their entire person appeared unusually haggard. On the sea, in a place where water was everywhere, it was strange that their lips were cracked to such an extent. Even seawater could not be drunk directly. A bucket of seawater was taken up, the seawater was distilled, and a stone slab was placed on top of the bucket. The stone slab condensed the steam into water droplets. It could also gather half a bucket of fresh water. Half a bucket of fresh water was enough for a navigator to drink for a day. But the bad news was that there were hundreds of black shadows lurking under the water. Previously, there were sailors who risked their lives to use buckets to get water, but they did not expect these black shadows to have such strong jumping ability. There was originally no point of force in the water, but now they used the bucket as a point of force. The black shadow actually jumped onto the deck in an instant. On the deck, the black shadow could rely on its fleshy fins to move. Although it was clumsy, its sudden acceleration was still faster than the sailors. After paying the price of 5 sailors' lives, they finally killed this black shadow. Just by looking at the sailors on the ship, they were not surprised by the black shadows under the ship. It could be seen that these sailors had been besieged by the black shadows for a very long time. But fortunately, the black shadows from before had jumped onto the deck and were killed by the sailors. Otherwise, the sailors would not have any food to fill their stomachs. But the flesh of these black shadows, Even if their stomachs were rumbling with hunger, they did not dare to eat, because the more they ate, the more thirsty they would be. Eating when the body was extremely dehydrated was no different from suicide. Chapter 1481. Compared to starvation, lack of water was easier to take a sailor's life. Navigator Warren walked out of the cockpit with a sullen face. Warren's heart tightened as he looked at his brothers who had been with him for many years. The ship could only stay on the sea and drift with the current. These shadows were sophenbite sharks, the nightmare of all Storm Federation navigators. In order to be able to sail long distances, the power system would be placed under the hull. However, these sophenbite sharks dealt with the Storm Federation's ships all year round. They had learned how to destroy the Storm Federation's ships. These sophenbite sharks would chase small turtle species phase in the sea. They would force the small turtle species phase to the power port under the hull, and force them into the power port. They would block the power port. Even if the ship had backup power, it would still be unable to sail. If they wanted to sail, they could only get off the ship to clean the power port. Every adult sawtooth-bite shark was at the peak of the gold rank. There had to be platinum sawtooth sharks in such a large group of sharks. No one on the ship could survive for more than 10 seconds after entering the water. Once someone entered the water, they would immediately be torn into pieces by the sophenbite sharks, leaving only a red flower of blood. Suddenly a sailor fell headlong from the watchtower and landed on the deck. The watchtower was 10 meters tall, and the sailor who fell unconsciously was dead as soon as he touched the ground. Seeing the sailor who fell from the watchtower, the other sailors and Warren immediately ran over. After confirming that the sailor was dead, many sailors were in a state of extreme lack of water. 2 drops of tears rolled down their rough faces. Warren knew that the sailor had fallen from the watchtower because he had just fainted from thirst. If his brothers and himself were to be trapped here, they would definitely die. They would all be wiped out in less than 2 days. His Warren, which was named after him, would also become a ghost ship on the sea. Warren was no longer a young man, but a middle-aged man in his 30s. However, Warren still had the drive of a young navigator in his heart. In the dangerous sea, he relied on the Storm Federation's unique shipbuilding technology to go out to sea with a few men to search for supplies. Occasionally he could make a small profit. When he was young, Warren was a person who often talked about his dreams. Even though he was middle-aged, he was still working hard on the path of a navigator. But compared to his dreams, Warren hoped that he and his old buddies could survive. Thinking of this, Warren returned to the bottom of the cabin and took out the only barrel of wine left by his master, the old navigator. Although the strong liquor wasn't enough to quench their thirst, drinking it would still make the brothers feel better. Facing the withering lives, Warren felt that the things that he valued in the past were all gone. None of that mattered now. Only by living on could he and his old buddies pursue their dreams. Warren's sailors were all drunkards. Whenever he saw alcohol, it was as if he didn't care about his life. Every time he returned to the port, the first thing he did was to go to the bar to pass the time. However, when Warren took out the jar of wine, the sailors all refused, indicating that they could still bear it. Warren took out the jar of wine because he felt that his brothers' lives were more important than his own. But now, because his brothers knew that he treasured this jar of wine very much, they were not willing to drink it. The sour feeling in Warren's heart rumbled. Warren couldn't hold it in any longer. He forcefully pulled the cork off the barrel. As the cork left the barrel, the aroma of wine immediately wafted out. Warren said to the youngest sailor, "Little monkey, go and bring the bowls." Hearing Warren's words, the sailor called Little Monkey immediately ran to get the bowls. Warren keenly noticed that Little Monkey's wrist was tied with a piece of black cloth. Warren suddenly thought of the saw-toothed shark meat that Little Monkey had given him yesterday. Why were they all soaked in the water? Little Monkey was usually too naughty and always had conflicts with the old sailors on the deck. Warren always said that Little Monkey was immature. But now, it seemed that although Little Monkey was immature, he was much more humane than the ground. Little Monkey brought over a stack of bowls. As Warren poured the bowls, he found that one was missing. Just when Warren was about to ask Little Monkey waved his hand. "Brother Warren, I'm on duty tonight. I have to stand on the watchtower. I won't drink. Hearing this, Warren directly hugged Little Monkey. Without saying anything, he poured 2 bowls of wine into Little Monkey's mouth. You don't have to stand on the watchtower tonight. I'll do it. When the little monkey heard this, it smacked its lips as if it was tasting the wine in its mouth for the last time. He said, Brother Turbo, you can't do that. Turbo waved his hand and said, Since I can't sail the ship, there's nothing for me to do as a navigator. Tonight, all of you go to the bottom of the cabin and have a good sleep. I'll go stand on the watchtower. That's settled. After that, Warren picked up the bowl and drank a big bowl of wine. Warren was very strict with his sailors and did not allow them to drink while on duty. But now, looking at Little Monkey and his old buddies, Warren felt that if he didn't drink a bowl of wine, he wouldn't be able to suppress the despair and sorrow in his heart. At night, Warren leaned on the observation tower's railing and summoned his Fae, Binding Sea Fern. He ordered the Binding Sea Fern to reinforce the watchtower. No matter how hard such an adult tried, he wouldn't be able to climb down the watchtower. Warren, who was leaning against the fence, looked at the moon in the sky and sighed. Warren, who loved sunny days in the past, hoped that the dark clouds would cover the sky and it would rain heavily at this time. After waiting until midnight, when the sky was about to break, Warren, who was always determined, couldn't take it anymore. He fainted uncontrollably. Before he fainted, a thought popped up in Warren's mind. If I can let myself and these old buddies survive, I, Warren, am willing to exchange everything for it. The stars shone brightly, and the Milky Way flowed among them. In the center of the Milky Way, the nebula rose with magnificent starlight. Under the nebula's encirclement, a long-awaited meeting was held once again. It was just that this time's meeting was slightly less compared to the previous 6 people. Sue Erin didn't participate in this celestial body meeting. Instead, she was nurturing her 14 millet fruits. At this moment, facing the Libra constellation and Leo constellation, 3 figures formed from willpower and spirit appeared on the seats of the Andromeda constellation, Immortal constellation, and Leo Minor constellation. The people on the Leo Minor constellation were happy to see their own masters again. But when the people on the Andromeda constellation and Immortal constellation saw the figures on the Leo constellation's seat, they couldn't help but have tears in their eyes. Suppressing the excitement and surprise in her heart, Lin spoke first. Leo Libra, long time no see. Chapter 1482. After saying, Lion Libra, it's been a long time, Lin did not know what kind of feelings she was filled with at this moment. This was because these feelings were simply too complicated. Rejoicing, relief, the joy of regaining what was lost, or relief after thinking hard for a long time. In short, she once again saw that man with the myriad Daos willpower and laws entwined around him. That man was still here. Upon hearing Lin's words, Lin Yuan spoke to her apologetically. The last celestial council should have gone on as usual, but something happened, so it couldn't be held as scheduled. But this problem won't happen again. While Lin Yuan was speaking, when you looked at Lin with some scrutiny. As a woman, Wen Yu's senses were very sharp. Wen Yu could feel from Lin's words to Lin Yuan that she had a special feeling for him. This feeling was much hotter than friendship. This feeling was as turbulent as the mother of bloodbaths' suppressed feelings for Lin Yuan. Wen Yu quietly glanced at Lin Yuan and sighed. The youth beside her was simply too outstanding. But to be honest, Lin's identity was quite compatible with Lin Yuan's. Fortunately, there was no such thing as a marriage alliance between Hui Yao and Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress would not allow others to force Lin Yuan to marry without his consent. Otherwise, after Lin learned of Lin Yuan's identity in reality, she would reveal her identity and make their relationship clear. It was very likely that she would really become Lin Yuan's. Lin did not know what was going on in Wen Yu's mind. If Lin really knew Wen Yu's thoughts, she would immediately be at a loss whether to laugh or cry. However, after that, Lin would reflect on it. Reflect on what kind of gratitude she had for Lin Yuan. Or was it a kind of hazy affection? Just as Lin Yuan was about to continue speaking, a figure condensed from willpower and Laws suddenly appeared in front of him and hugged him. This person was Bei-Su. Bei-Su's behavior made Wen Yu, who was sitting on the Libra seat, unable to react at all. Wen Yu's brows furrowed immediately. Everyone in the Celestial Council was in the form of willpower and souls. Only Lin Yuan and Wen Yu, who sat on the 12 golden thrones, could judge the souls in the Celestial Council. No matter what Bei-Su did, he could not hurt Lin Yuan. However, in Wen Yu's eyes, Bei-Su's actions were a little too overbearing. Lin Yuan was also stunned by Bei-Su's hug. Immediately after, a smile appeared on his face. Lin Yuan's body, which was composed of thousands of laws and willpower, gently opened his arms and hugged Bei-Su. It was a response to Bei-Su's long-awaited reunion. Lin Yuan gently patted Bei-Su's back. After Bei-Su's emotions stabilized, Lin Yuan released Bei-Su's embrace. Bei-Su was too surprised and excited just now. Bei-Su, who had now recovered, couldn't help but blush at the thought of his previous actions. Bei-Su used to be a lowly cursed stoneworm that mined in the underground world. It was Lin Yuan who had helped Bei-Su get rid of the cursed stoneworm's identity. It gave Bei-Su a new life. Lin Yuan had prepared all kinds of Fey enhancement potions and knowledge for himself, regardless of whether they were big or small. It could be said that Bei-Su, who was originally alone, had already regarded Lin Yuan as his most cherished person. Bei-Su scratched his head in embarrassment, just like a little kid. He returned to his seat at Immortal Constellation Mountain. Seeing Bei-Su return to his seat, Trey couldn't help but curl his lips. I haven't hugged Master yet. Why did Immortal Constellation hug Master first? Trey had the temperament of a young man. Just as he was about to go forward and hug Lin Yuan said very seriously, "The South Corona will not participate in the Celestial Council this time." Lin Yuan's words stunned Lin, Bei-Su, and Trey. The three of them clearly remembered that the South Corona had signed a contract with the seat at the previous Celestial Council. Why didn't he appear at the Celestial Council this time? Could it be that the South Corona had offended the lion and scale, and was chased out by them? Or had something happened to the South Corona in these 14 days? Just as the three of them were letting their imaginations run wild, they heard Lin Yuan explain. "I have already met the South Corona in the real world. I have some matters to discuss with the South Corona in the real world. Therefore, the South Corona will not participate in most of the Celestial Council in the future." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Lin, Bei-Su, and Trey revealed a look of understanding. Then, the three of them became envious. This was because Lin, Bei-Su, and Trey also wanted to meet Lin Yuan in the real world. What would a lion look like in reality? He recalled that Lin Yuan had told him to go to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to exchange the strange water for heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls after arriving in the Radiance Federation. Lin asked, "Lion, I will reach the Radiance Federation in less than a month. Did I see you when I went to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to exchange for resources?" The moment she asked this question, Lin's tone was filled with anticipation. Upon hearing Lin's words, Lin Yuan shook his head gently. Upon seeing Lin Yuan shake his head, Lin's expression immediately dimmed. At that moment Lin Yuan said, "That's right. You probably won't see me when you go to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to exchange for the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. However, you will definitely have a chance to meet me when you stay in Radiance." Upon hearing that, Lin's face immediately revealed a smile. No matter what, he would be able to see Lin Yuan on this trip to the Radiance City. Lin had already regarded it as her greatest gain. Lin could not help but imagine Lin Yuan's appearance in reality. After chatting with Lin for a while, Lin Yuan looked at Bei-Su. He asked Bei-Su, "It should be very difficult to develop in the underground world, right? Are there any problems that need to be solved or areas that need help?" Upon hearing that, Bei-Su hurriedly replied, "Lion. During this time, I have pulled up a 10-man squad in the underground world. Everyone in this 10-man team has a contract with a source-type life form. Recently, I have been leading this squad to clear dimensional rifts below Class 2. On one hand, it can train their combat strength, and on the other hand, they can obtain more resources." At that point, Bei-Su suddenly thought of something. Lion, the bat-shaped ring you gave me already contains a lot of minerals. I don't know how many times better these minerals are than the ones I dug before. Lion, how can I send these minerals to you? Upon hearing Bei Su's words, Lin Yuan could not help but be a little speechless. Lin Yuan did not expect that Bei Su would think of giving him the resources that he had obtained with his life at this time. Chapter 1483. He had no way of obtaining these resources previously. Now that the Celestial Body Assembly had reached Class 3, Lin Yuan had an idea. He just wanted to use the Celestial Council's Celestial Soul Chair to exchange things with Bei Su. It consumed more law energy than what he had used to teleport Bei Su's items. Lin Yuan did not need the minerals produced from the Class 1 and Class 2 underground dimensional rifts at all. When looking at Bei Su's hopeful eyes, Lin Yuan said, "Don't worry. You can think of a way to forge the ores you've collected into simple equipment that you can wear. Even if your subordinates contract source-type items, it should be difficult for them to defeat an ordinary Class 1 underground creature, right?" To put it nicely, Lin Yuan felt that Bei Su was training his companions. To put it bluntly, Bei Su had to protect these people at all times. Bei Su's team didn't have any creation masters. There was no way to improve the strength of his subordinates' source-type items through the spirit materials they discovered. However, he could deliver supplies to Bei Su once or twice. If Lin Yuan were to take care of Bei Su's phase expenses, Bei Su's subordinates wouldn't be able to afford it. That would be a huge burden for him. Lin Yuan would not do that, but it was not like there was no way to change the current situation. There were two ways to change this situation. One was for Lin Yuan to teleport 100 Questions Beast to Bei Su. 100 Questions Beast with the ability of a Pinnacle Class 3 Creation Master would be able to improve the Bei Su team within a short period of time. However, the 100 Questions Beast was of great importance. It could affect the balance of the entire origin world. Even if he sent the 100 Questions Beast to Bei Su without worry, the 100 Questions Beast's ability would be exposed in the rock continent. It would immediately bring about a fatal disaster to Bei Su. Of course, there was another way. Lin Yuan had asked Genius to transmit the Creation Master's knowledge to Bei Su through the end of the connection. In the Celestial Body Council, everyone's body was made up of their soul and will. Lin Yuan couldn't see if Bei Su had Creation Master talent, just by looking at the body formed by the soul and willpower. Once Bei Su grasped the knowledge of a Creation Master, he would see if he could concoct the spirit fluid. If he could, it would prove that Bei Su had the talent of a Creation Master. Bei Su would be completely self-sufficient in the future. However, if not, Lin Yuan would have a headache. Upon hearing that, Bei Su could not help but feel a little ashamed. None of his teammates could fight. While cleaning up the underground dimensional rift, Bei Su spent most of his energy on taking care of his subordinates' safety. However, these subordinates greatly affected the speed at which Bei Su collected resources. But Bei Su couldn't just leave these subordinates alone. On one hand, Bei Su's emotions didn't allow him to do this. On the other hand, Lin Yuan's goal was to establish a faction. Once he lost these subordinates, Bei Su's desire to build a force could only be empty talk. Because no matter how strong Bei Su became, he couldn't call himself a force. Just as Bei Su was at a loss for words, Lin Yuan stood up and nodded at Wenyu. The Leo Nebula above his head shone brightly, and a belt of light appeared under his seat. This light belt was connected to the immortal constellation seat in the north. Lin Yuan did not tell Bei Su what he was going to do. Instead, he spoke to Lin, Bei Su, and Trey in unison. After the Celestial Body Conference, you can communicate with the Celestial Body Conference through the nebula at any time. However, the transmission of this information will be accompanied by a great deal of consumption. If it's not something important, try not to send a message to the Celestial Body Conference. Lin Yuan's words delighted Bei Su, Lin, and Trey. Previously, the three of them could only enter the Celestial Body Conference through deep sleep. This caused the three of them to feel a sense of insecurity. They were afraid that the Celestial Body Conference would no longer be open. Waiting was the most unbearable. But now they had the ability to communicate with the Celestial Body Conference. Even if they didn't use this ability, it could make people feel especially at ease. Through the Star Spirit Chair and Genius's exclusive skill, the interconnection tail, he transmitted the knowledge to Bei Su. It would only be transmitted to Bei Su's mind after the Celestial Body Conference was over. Lin Yuan didn't need to say much, and Bei Su would naturally know what to do. Such a large amount of knowledge was transmitted to Bei Su through Genius's exclusive skill, the interconnection tail. And it took Lin Yuan a lot of willpower. These willpower were all fragmented willpower absorbed from the incomplete fantasy breed phase corpses. It was these willpower that gave the princess dress many messy scenes and textures. After getting rid of these wills, the princess's skirt would become much more beautiful than before. After dealing with Bei Su's matter, Lin Yuan asked Trey, who was at the side. Do you know the Nanmu city on the border of the Divine Wood Federation that is closest to the Iron Hammer Federation? Trey nodded and said, Master, I've definitely heard of Nanmu city. However, if the border collapses and we reach the territory of the Divine Wood Federation, our Iron Hoof tribe might be killed before we can even reach Nanmu city. We can only go as far as the border, where the Depreme caravan sells their goods. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan replied, As long as you know the exact location of Nanmu city, when you reach the border of the Divine Wood Federation, don't bring everyone from the Iron Hoof tribe to Nanmu city. Have the stronger members of your tribe disguise themselves, and then go to Flourishing Prosperity Merchant Guild to find the guild leader, Li Wan. Tell Li Wan that you're looking for someone called Su Iran. She'll make arrangements for you. Trey carefully noted down Lin Yuan's words. After arranging Yin Lin, Bei Su and Talei's situation, Lin Yuan was in a daze. He was ready to let when you start selecting the new members of the Celestial Council, Lin Yuan said to Yin Lin and the others. Next, there will be 2 new members in the Celestial Council. In the future, if you have something important to do and are particularly busy, you don't have to attend the Celestial Council every 7 days. After deepening the connection between the Celestial Council and you, every time the Celestial Council opens, the astrology will communicate with you. As long as you respond to the astrology, you don't need to sleep to enter the Celestial Council. After saying that, Lin Yuan nodded at when you immediately activated the Celestial Council. When you activated the Celestial Council, the astrology hidden during the day automatically moved rhythmically. Immediately after, a figure with a willpower rune wrapped around its body appeared in the Celestial Council. The figure that suddenly appeared in the Celestial Council looked at the 2 figures sitting on the golden thrones under the resplendent nebula. He felt as if he was looking at a god. Chapter 1484. While this figure was confused, Lin Yuan, and when you had already used the Celestial Council's ability, he began to investigate this figure's background and experiences. At a glance, Lin Yuan and when you frowned at the same time, and their faces suddenly darkened. After checking this figure's background, Lin Yuan, and when you decided to let this figure stay in the Celestial Council, he became the 5th contractor of the Southern Sky Constellation Throne. Ever since Lin Yuan had become a spirit chi professional, he had helped many people. Every one of these people had some misfortune in one way or another. Due to the Insect Queen's injury, Lu Jie had gone from a Radiance 100 sequence member to an ordinary person who could not even use phase. Because when you had helped her companions, her talent had been damaged and she had been ostracized by her companions. As for Qin Luan and Qin Yu, because of the awakening of their beast marks, their bodies were unable to touch sunlight. However, compared to Qin Luan, Qin Yu, Wen Yu and Lu Jie, this figure was much more unfortunate. Or rather, using the word unfortunate to describe this figure's experience was somewhat inaccurate. The experience of this figure could only be described as pitiful. According to this figure's memories and experiences, Lin Yuan knew that this figure was just a teenager who had accidentally awakened a willpower rune. Ever since he was born, his fate had been full of misfortune, and he had never been able to get what he wanted. All kinds of hardships, big and small, were piled on Bu Po's body. Bu Po and his sister, who depended on each other for survival, simply could not breathe. The fact that his sister was kidnapped and forced to get married was the last straw that broke the camel's back. But the root of all this couldn't be said to be the youth's misfortune. Instead, it was because this young man was in an extremely deformed federation, the Mother Goddess Federation. He already had a certain understanding of the Mother Goddess Federation. The agro-pattern main road was in the southwest of the Radiance continent, and it was the closest continent to the Radiance continent. Apart from the Terror Pattern continent, there was another continent that was very close to the Radiance continent. This continent was called the Fearful Sand continent. There were two great federations on the Frost Sand continent. One of them was the Mother Goddess Federation where Bupo was. On the Frost Sand continent, the Mother Goddess Federation and the Sand Continent Federation were neighbors. Each of the two major federations had a Class 5 Creation Master. However, as compared to the number of Class 4 Creation Masters, the Sand Province Federation had nearly 3 times more than the Mother Goddess Federation. But under such circumstances, the Mother Goddess Federation was still able to stand against the Sand Continent Federation, and was not at a disadvantage. It was because of the Mother Goddess Federation's special system of governance. The ruling system of the Mother Goddess Federation was only divided into 3 ranks: Mother Earth, Mother Heaven, and Mother Goddess. Mother Goddess was the only one in the Federation, and Heavenly Mother controlled Mother Earth. Mother Earth had absolute authority among ordinary people. As long as Mother Earth followed the rules, she could decide the life and death of ordinary people. Bupo's sister was fancied by a son of Mother Earth. And if this son of Mother Earth directly did something to Bupo's sister, it would be against the rules. But if Mother Earth's youngest son married Bupo's elder sister, Bupo would be the one to die. Whatever Bupo's youngest son did would belong to Mother Earth's family affairs. Such rigid rules were simple and crude, and there was no logic to speak of at all. Even the only Divine Mother in the Divine Wood Federation had to be restricted by the Divine Mother Guards in certain matters. For example, the Mother Goddess could not marry for her entire life. At the same time, the Mother Goddess had to accept disciples in her prime. He would also pass down his Class 5 Creation Master path to his disciple. This way, the Mother Goddess Federation's Class 5 Creation Masters could be passed down from generation to generation, repeating the cycle. When mentioning the Mother Goddess Federation, Lin Yuan could clearly feel that his master, the Moon Empress, was unwilling to talk more. Lin Yuan could see that his master hated the Mother Goddess Federation from the bottom of her heart. At that time, Lin Yuan didn't know why his master had such a great hostility toward the Mother Goddess Federation. Moreover, there was some disdain in it. Now that Lin Yuan understood the true situation of the Mother Goddess Federation, he had the same feeling. Lin Yuan's previous impression of the Mother Goddess Federation was that the people loved tattoos. From birth to death, a person would often be covered in tattoos. However, based on Bupo's experience, Lin Yuan had a more intuitive understanding of the Mother Goddess Federation. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Bupo murmur, "Am I dreaming? Or am I already dead?" Bupo was obviously worried when she said that she was already dead. According to his perception, Lin Yuan understood that Bupo was afraid that her sister would miss him and be sad for him after knowing. Looking at Bupo's confused look, Lin Yuan asked, "You're not dead. Welcome to the Celestial Body Council. Do you remember the wish you made before you fell asleep?" Upon hearing that, Bupo stared at the 2 figures sitting on the golden thrones in disbelief. Of course, Bupo remembered what she was thinking before she fell asleep. Even after falling unconscious, Bupo was still thinking about how to save her sister. Bupo didn't even have the time to exclaim that there really were immortals in this world. "Dear immortals, if you can save my sister, I will do anything for you. I beg you, please save my sister." Before his voice faded, Bupo's body, which was transformed from her soul and will, had already knelt on the ground devoutly. His eyes were filled with hope. In the Mother Goddess Federation, dignity was the most important thing. Because only some people take dignity as a breath, to support their spine. Only then would they have the courage to continue living under the layers of pressure. But now, Bupo's actions had thrown away her dignity and bottom line. This meant that Bupo valued her sister's feelings 10,000 times more than her own dignity. Bupo's request could be considered as a response to the Celestial Council's oath. However, if Lin Yuan wanted to help Bupo save her sister, He had to think carefully about how to do it. The best way was to make Bupa become an Earth Mother. However, Bupa didn't have either of the two conditions to become an Earth Mother. Bupa was now only a D-rank spirit chi professional who had awakened a willpower rune by chance, but she had never contracted a Fey. Therefore, it was simply impossible for Bupa to become a king-class expert. Even if Lin Yuan could prepare a bronze/epic Fey for Bupa. At the same time, he also sent over the diamond spirit fluid of this bronze/epic Fey. Given Bupa's spirit chi professional rank, she couldn't contract it. Therefore, if he wanted to help Bupa get out of this predicament, he could only try the second way. This second way was like Lin Yuan betting on whether Bei Su had the talent to become a creation master. He was betting on whether Bupa had the talent to become a creation master. However, if Bei Su lost the gamble, it would be as simple as not being able to enhance his subordinate's source-type lifeforms. If Bupa lost the gamble, she would lose her sister because of this. Lin Yuan had never experienced Bupa's situation before, but he could put himself in her shoes. Chapter 1485. He could not imagine what would happen if Chu Xi encountered the same situation as Bupa's big sister. How would he feel when he was powerless to do anything? However, after thinking about it, the only way to solve the problem was to bet on Bupa's talent. After all, the current Celestial Council was still unable to teleport powerhouses over. He couldn't teleport Bupa over. However, if Bupa really had the talent of a creation master, she would become a Class 3 creation master in a short time with Lin Yuan's help. Bupa was only 15 years old now. A Class 3 creation master at such a young age in the Radiance Federation. All of them could be called geniuses that were rarely seen in the world. If Heavenly Mother of the Mother Goddess Federation discovered an outstanding Mother Earth, she would be rewarded by Mother Goddess. Thus, the Heavenly Mother of the Mother Goddess Federation would usually try her best to help the Mother Earth that she discovered. After Bupa's innate talent was discovered by the Heavenly Mother, in order to receive a reward, Bupa's innate talent was discovered by the Heavenly Mother. She would definitely report Bupa's situation to the Divine Mother. It was rumored that the Mother Goddess of the Mother Goddess Federation had already accepted 4 disciples. Presumably, the Mother Goddess of the Mother Goddess Federation wouldn't mind accepting another talented disciple like Bupa, right? At that thought, Lin Yuan said to Wen Yu, Tiancheng, it was Lyra constellation that brought Bupa into the Celestial Body Council. Let Bupa sign a contract with Lyra constellation. When you said to Bupa upon hearing this, Lion allows you to join the Celestial Council. Place your hand on the back of the Lyra seat beside you. Use your soul to sign a contract with this Lyra throne. Bupa hurriedly stood up when she heard this. He clumsily placed his palm on the back of the Lyra seat. Bupa knew that the reason why he said that was because he had agreed to her request. His sister could finally be saved. Even though Zhang Xian did not know how the other party would help him, he was confident that the other party would be able to lure him here. This meant that the other party was definitely very powerful. In any case, none of the Mother Earths that Bupa had seen before had such an ability. The moment Bupa placed her palm on the back of the Lyra seat, among the thousands of nebulae above his head, the Lyra nebula shone brightly. Lyra constellation's radiance landed on Bupa's body, causing Bupa's entire body to become resplendent. At the same time, the astral soul chair of the Celestial Council connected to Bupa. Lin Yuan used genius exclusive skill, interconnection tail, to transfer a massive amount of creation master knowledge to Bupa. After transmitting the knowledge, Lin Yuan said to Bupa, Now, I will send you away from the Celestial Council. You already have the ability to communicate with the Celestial Council. After you leave, use your family's current savings to buy spirit materials according to the things that have appeared in your mind. If you can concoct these spirit materials into a spirit liquid, you'll know what to do next. If you can't do anything with the spiritual materials you bought, contact me through the Celestial Council. As soon as he said that, Wen Yu sent Bupa away from the Celestial Council. After Bupa left the Celestial Body Council, she slowly woke up. Before Bupa could determine whether what she had just experienced was real or just a dream, A voice suddenly rang out. An explosion of information appeared in Bupo's mind. Bupa spent almost a day in dizziness before she recovered from it. Bupo's stomach was rumbling with hunger, and she was in no mood to eat. Bupo's heart was filled with gratitude and excitement. Bupa knew that she had met a benefactor. Right now, Bupa felt that as long as she obtained the spiritual ingredients, she would be able to produce the spirit fluid that only creation masters could concoct. With excitement and apprehension, Bupa carefully took half of her and her sister's savings from under the bed. Bupa planned to use this money to buy some scarlet fruits. With the scarlet fruits, fish lantern grass, and 7 or 8 supplementary spiritual materials, she could concoct a spirit liquid called the scarlet elixir. The scarlet elixir was for animal species phased to drink and could enhance their physical strength. Of course, spirit chi professionals could also drink the scarlet elixir. The scarlet elixir could quickly replenish a spirit chi professional's physical strength. Bupa planned to concoct a bottle of scarlet elixir. If she succeeded, Bupa could directly report to the Creation Master Alliance. She could find Heavenly Mother in the Creation Master Alliance and apply for the identity of Mother Earth. If she could not, Bupa would quickly contact the person who had made a promise to her in the stars. After all, her sister did not have much time left. The Divine Wood Federation's wedding process was a total of 4 days. The 3rd day was to meet each other's parents. Her parents were already dead, so she wanted to save her sister. Bupa could only use it for 1 day. After buying the spiritual materials, Bupa did not return home. She simply rented the most ordinary room in the Creation Master Alliance. Bupa tried to concoct the scarlet elixir according to the knowledge in her mind. Although she had the knowledge, Bupo's movements were very rusty. However, 20 minutes later, a crystal bottle of dark red spirit liquid appeared in Bupo's hand. After Bupa tried to drink the bottle of dark red elixir, Bupo's tears flowed out. These tears were not sad, but tears of joy. Bupa knew that she was now qualified to become the Mother Earth of the Goddess Federation. This way, she could be on equal footing with the 6th young master's father who had snatched her sister away. Bupa could finally rescue her sister. From now on, Bupa decided that she would protect her sister while repaying the 2 figures who had redeemed her in the stars. However, Bupa did not know that she was about to become famous in the Goddess Federation. She would become the youngest Class 3 creation master on the Cold Sand continent. She would even be accepted as a disciple by the goddess who only existed in legends. Because of the grand meeting in the stars, a change in the Cold Sand continent had quietly begun. After sending Bupa back, she continued to use the astrology. She searched for other people who were willing to exchange everything for a wish. However, this choice made Lin Yuan and Wenyu rather awkward. Many of these people were not in a difficult situation, and what they wanted was not what they needed. Most of them wanted money that they could not spend in their lifetime, and a high position. They even wanted women that they could not get. Even if Lin Yuan could help them fulfill these wishes, he could not do it. Otherwise, if he helped these people fulfill their wishes, Lin Yuan would become a heinous bully. Moreover, the Celestial Council did not need such people. At that moment, a figure with 2 wills appeared in the Celestial Council. After this figure appeared, he was only stunned for a moment before he checked the surrounding situation. This meant that this person had seen the world. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to cultivate such a calm demeanor. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.